All right, we are live.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, board members and community. Welcome all. Buenas noches a todos y bienvenidos a la reunión ordinaria de la Junta de Educación de Dover. This meeting, which is hereby called to order at 6:40 p.m., is in compliance with the requirement of the law. Public notice was posted in the office of the Board of Education and communicated to the municipal court and the Daily Record on the 2nd of September of 2020. Due to the current public health emergency, this evening's meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting. Instructions for accessing and participating in virtual meeting were posted on the district website at www.dover-nj.org. Dr. Sainer, may you lead us please on the flag salute and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could stay standing for a moment of silence, please. Could we please take a moment of silence for our students, staff, and Dover residents who are all feeling the impact of COVID directly, the stress of living life during COVID with its many challenges, as well as struggling with the injustice and inequity that exists in our world. We hope that working together as one Dover, we can stand united and continue to support each other through these difficult times. Thank you.
Mr. Minkowicz, would you please provide us with attendance roll call?
Yes, Ms. Catano,
Present.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Mullen,
Here.
Ms. Nutting,
Here.
Mr. Robles,
Here.
Ms. Ruiz,
Here.
Ms. Viveros,
Present.
Dr. Sainer,
Present.
Ms. Grisales.
Present. As we conduct our regular meeting business, let's remember that we are tasked with working together as a community. Our mission is to welcome all and provide opportunities for our students in a safe and accepting learning environment to become creative, empathetic, resilient, and who choose to make an impact. Dr. McLaughlin, when you introduce our presentations of this evening, please.
I'll actually turn that over to Ms. Stalopoulou.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Ms. Cynthia Gensinger. She is here with us tonight. Ms. Gensinger is our supervisor for gifted education along with social studies. And she is going to present to us about the AP Capstone program. And I am going to disappear and share my screen with Ms. Gensinger's and I'm going to ask the facilitator, when I attempted to share my screen, it did indicate that screen sharing is disabled. So Mr. Freericks, if we can enable that. Mr. Freericks, I wonder if you make me a host, if that will allow me to do the screen share. Oh, there we go. And it is back up. Okay, so everybody should be seeing the presentation. And I am going to put it in present mode. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Gensinger.
Thank you, Ms. Stalopoulou, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I would also like to thank you for the opportunity to present the AP Capstone program. First, I'd like to start with the history of the program. So if we could advance to the next slide, please. Okay, so in 2016, the Dover High School graduating class had nearly 1/3 of its students receive a score of 3, which is qualified, or higher on at least one advanced placement exam. Within that same graduating class, 14 students were recognized as AP scholars. These students earned scores of 3 or higher on at least 3 or more exams. And within the 2016 graduating class, Dover High School at that time offered 11 advanced placement courses. Okay, if we could advance, please. Thank you. The College Board in 2014 created the AP Capstone program. And within that program, they have 2 additional classes, AP Seminar and AP Research. These classes focused on developing college readiness, research, and writing skills, rather than content skills that you would see in perhaps AP US History or AP Environmental Science. In AP Seminar, I'll just quickly discuss AP Seminar. In AP Seminar, students were required to engage in a team presentation, an individual research paper, and then a culminating AP exam at the end of the year. In the AP Research course, students had to select their own research question, then engage in the research, present their findings in a 20 to 25 page type paper, and then engage in an oral presentation regarding their findings. Students also had to achieve scores of 3 or higher on at least 4 or more AP exams. So in total, for a student to achieve the AP Capstone Diploma, they had to pass 6 AP exams. Okay. There are multiple benefits to the AP Capstone program. Some of them include fostering, if we could just go back one slide, please. Some of them include fostering research skills, argumentation skills, communication skills, and all of these skills enhance college readiness and learning. The AP Capstone program also builds on the rigorous coursework of AP in an interdisciplinary format. And what's most important, I've actually heard from talking to parents of students who have just gone off to college, it offers these students a very unique opportunity to distinguish themselves to colleges and universities. So in August of 2016, because our students were excelling so well in our current AP program, the district decided to become an AP, or at least to apply to become an AP Capstone school. At the time, only 12 schools in New Jersey were designated as AP Capstone schools, and the district was accepted in November of 2016. So in order for a student to join the AP Capstone program, there are some requirements in the application. The first is at the end of the 9th grade year, students must have a GPA of 3.7 or higher. Students also should achieve combined scores of a 9 on the NJSLA exam, either a 5 on the math and the 4 on the English language arts, or vice versa. Or if a student hasn't met those requirements, then a score of 1,000 or higher on the PSAT 8-9. In addition, the student needed to receive 2 teacher recommendations, and the teachers were provided with a very specific rubric. So I would like to introduce our 2 AP Capstone educators. The first is Mr. Michael Morgan. Mr. Morgan teaches the AP Seminar course, as well as AP US History and US History 2. In 2017, Mr. Morgan received the extremely prestigious New Jersey Secondary Exemplary Educator Award from the state of New Jersey. And in order to teach AP Seminar, the College Board mandates that teachers attend their week-long mandatory training, and Mr. Morgan traveled to the University of Texas at Arlington and spent a week there for the training. So thank you, Mr. Morgan. Our next educator for AP Research is Mrs. Laura Kristiniak. Laura has taught gifted and talented 8th grade language arts, AP Literature, and English 3 honors. Laura also is the recipient of 2 Gilder Lehrman Summer Institutes, and she has studied American protest literature at Boston University and traveled to the University of Texas to analyze immigration history. Laura as well was required to attend a week-long mandatory training for AP Research, and she traveled to Pinellas County, Florida for that training. And now I am so excited and pleased to introduce the first AP Capstone cohort of students. And I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order, and you will also see their research questions. So you'll see that all the questions are very varied and they're in an interdisciplinary format. And before I do that, I am so proud of the entire group, because when we were introducing the program in the spring of 2017, I talked to all of you and your parents at that evening. I asked how many of you would like to type a 20 to 25 page research paper, and you all said yes. And so I was really impressed. So our first student is Victor Benitez, and Victor analyzed the relationship between basketball performance and academic performance in our student athletes at Dover High School. Our next student is Noor El Sayed, and Noor studied the interaction with dogs to see if the interaction with dogs would improve or would change standardized tests before the actual assessment. Our next student is William Fritsch, and Will studied how do high school student athletes at Dover High School manage their time compared to non-student athletes. Next, we have Heidi Garcia, and Heidi analyzed the psychological health effects on assault victims between the ages of 14 and 18 in the United States. Our next student is Edith Garrido, and Edith studied the correlation between a parent's involvement with her children when they're younger, and then what happens with that relationship as the children get older. Victor Giraldo Estrada analyzed the toxic language in the online multiplayer game League of Legends and how that causes toxicity in first-person shooters. David Hoyt analyzed the amount of sleep Dover High School students receive, and does that actually have an impact on their GPAs and attendance. Lauren Kramer studied purchasing habits within New Jersey residents ages 18 to 25, and is there a connection with retromania? Julianna O'Connell studied the perception of media bias on the 2004, 2012, and 2016 presidential elections on CNN and Fox News. Kassandra Mendoza studied the effects of light intensity on the learning process of boys between the ages of 7 and 9 with learning disabilities in Morris County. Caitlin Pinetto studied the extent that the Branch Davidians and the People's Temple, how they manipulate female members into remaining in those social cults. Lizeth Rodriguez studied the experience of trauma in childhood, in particular domestic violence and foster care, and what does that impact on social emotional development. Hannah Trongon studied the effect of the mental states of American serial killers and how does that affect their method of killing. And Cliona Twomey studied the average age of verbal sexual harassment of girls in New Jersey and how does that lead to anxiety and self-esteem. And Evelyn Garcia analyzed the signing of Executive Order 13767 and how it impacted reported accounts of police brutality on Hispanic immigrants. And now I would like to share the amazing and wonderful accomplishments of this cohort. So 12 students received the AP Capstone Diploma. So they passed AP Seminar, AP Research, and 4 additional classes. Within this group, we have the class valedictorian and the class salutatorian. We also have 1 national AP scholar. This student had an average score of a 4 and received a 4 on 8 or more AP exams. In addition, we have 6 AP scholars with distinction. The students received an average score of a 3.5 and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more exams. We also have 2 AP scholars with honor, and the students received an average score of a 3.25 and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. And we have 7 AP scholars, and the students received scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more exams. And Caitlin was so kind, so I'd like to thank Caitlin for sharing her experience in the AP Capstone program. Thank you, Caitlin.
So if somebody could just let me know if you're hearing the video when I play it, that would be helpful.
Barely. Oh, we don't hear it.
Throughout my sophomore and senior year, I worked alongside
Yes.
that have helped me make great research projects and research papers. Now, I will say I learned many great writing and public speaking skills. Specifically, the classes in itself, we were able to build a whole family at the end of the day because we were with each other for such a long time, both sophomore and senior year. We were looked out for one another, we helped find each other's sources, and it was just a great environment to be in. Of course, I do plan on using the public speaking skills and the writing skills in college, and I do plan on being a part of a research project while at Villanova University. So overall, I really did enjoy being a part of this program because it has taught me so many things.
Okay, so thank you very much, Caitlin, for your reflection. And next we have a reflection from David Hoyt. Thank you, David, for creating your video as well.
Hello, I'm David Hoyt, and I was asked to speak briefly to you about my experience within the AP Capstone program. These 2 years were so much more than preparation for a few presentations and papers. I was able to learn how to conduct research, perform my own studies and experiments, and also learn how to manage my own time and progress throughout the project. I'd like to thank everyone who was able to make this program a possibility for both me and my peers, as we were able to gain a lot as we enter college. Thank you very much again.
And thank you again, David, for your reflection. Okay, so I would like to expand beyond the AP Capstone group of students and show you the results of the Dover High School graduating class of 2020. So nearly 40% of the students received a score of a 3 qualified or higher on at least one AP exam. So 40% of the class was at least enrolled in the class and passed one. In 2016, that percentage was approximately 33%. 33 students out of the entire graduating class have earned awards. We have 1 National AP Scholar, 7 AP Scholars with Distinction, 5 AP Scholars with Honor, and 20 AP Scholars. In 2016, we had 14 AP Scholars. And Dover High School now offers 17 AP courses, and that number has gone up since the 11 in 2016. And this would not be possible without all of your support and help and dedication. So I'd like to thank everybody who was involved with this program. Parents and guardians, thank you for saying yes in 2017 and enrolling your students in the program. Students in the Capstone program, thank you for taking on this very ambitious endeavor. I'd like to also thank the Dover Board of Education, Central Office Administration, Dover High School Administration, AP Capstone educators, and AP teachers, and the K-12 administration and teachers throughout the Dover School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gensinger, for that presentation.
Would that conclude presentations for tonight?
Does.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see all those achievements, and it's such a proud moment for us as Dover Tigers. So that's exciting. Congratulations to all the parents and all their work that they had to do at home as well to push the kids and maybe not. And thank you for the kids who did. Awesome. It's an extremely great thing to see.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
If I may, I just want to acknowledge those viewers who had to switch to Boxcast. If you're usually watching the board on YouTube, I understand that YouTube might be having a little trouble right now. Our facilitator is working on that piece, but if any of your friends are experiencing a difficulty, please tell them to click on the Boxcast and they will be able to see the meeting.
And you can access that through the website as well.
On the
There's
website,
the link
yes,
on the
both links are
website.
there, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for making that announcement. If we move forward with our public agenda section of the meeting, the board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. To ensure fair and orderly expression of such comment, each statement shall be held to a time period of 3 minutes. Public comments limited to items on this agenda shall be entertained for approximately 30 minutes. Upon the discretion of this presiding officer, This is a virtual meeting occurring during COVID-19 shutdown. Public comments has been solicited through the Google form on the district website. Please understand that public comment portions of our agenda are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board may or may not respond to public comments. However, all comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when providing comments. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students or employees. Please be advised that you are commenting at your own risk. Any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject you to legal liability for defamation. As the board listens to comments from our community, let's remember that almost on a daily basis, our strong, dense, and small town of Dover community, including adults and children, have had to make sacrifices and decisions with the theme of livelihood versus lives. These decisions are cumbersome, delicate, and most likely traumatic. Let us all remember that we are one Dover that takes into account primarily the safety, well-being, and educational goals of all our Dover school community. Mr. Minkowitz, may you please proceed to read our public comments?
Yes.
And there was none in Spanish, you said, correct?
I believe the first comment is by Diana Morris, the president of the Mine Hill Board of Education. We believe that, wait a minute. Okay. Dear members of the Dover Township Board of Education, we are writing this letter to support the continuation of the School Resource Officer Program in the Dover Public Schools. The Mine Hill Board of Education feels strong that having officers in the building provides valuable resources to school staff members and administration, fosters positive relationships with the students, develops strategies to resolve problems affecting students, and protect students so that they can reach their fullest potentials. A strong relationship between the school district and law enforcement is essential to ensuring student safety. On December 14, 2012, a gunman blasted through a glass entryway at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, and within minutes murdered 20 children and 6 adults. Since the day of the tragedy, local boards of education throughout our nation have faced the question, what else must be done to ensure the safety and security of school children? More recently, school shootings in Pleasantville and Brick demonstrate the need to keep school safety and security in the forefront of our decision-making. The New Jersey School Boards Association School Security Task Force, a group convened in March 2013 as part of the NJSBA Safe and Secure Schools Project, in response to the deadly December 2012 shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut, studied all aspects of school security. In its 2014 final report, the task force stated that an SRO can provide a critical safety factor and valuable counseling and support service for students. Therefore, the employment of SROs is the preferred model for a law enforcement presence in school buildings. This New Jersey School Security Task Force, which was appointed by Governor Christie the same year, and also charged with studying school security, later reinforced that argument, stressing the best practice in school safety and security would entail the use of SROs exclusively. PL 2016 C-79 implements various recommendations of the NJSSTF concerning the architectural design of new school construction and the hardening of school perimeters and building entryways. The law also provides that in both new school building construction and existing school buildings, the district shall employ various school security principles and standards. Examples of such standards include limiting the number of doors for access by school staff, keeping exterior doors locked, creating secure vestibules at the school main entrance, using surveillance cameras as a target hardening tool, and developing a strict distribution protocol. We believe that SROs help make up for security deficiencies, including lack of appropriate surveillance equipment, security vestibules, and other design deficiencies in the older school buildings.
Excuse me, Mr. Minkowitz, that was the 3-minute mark on that.
All right, sorry about that. I think
Nothing,
that's
nothing to be sorry about.
Yep.
Mr. Minkowitz, can you finish that sentence, please? I lagged off. Sorry, I wasn't quick enough in my mute.
Yeah, I moved on to the next one.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. The next comment's from Darren Carney, Hillside Ave. Can you please explain what policy number 1643.03 is about? Restart and recovery full-time remote instruction. The next comment is from Gabriel Gomez, 85 Brook Drive. What progress, if any, has been made to ensure that there is anti-racism curriculum and training in our public schools? The next comment is from Anthony Mayorga. Regarding full sports, I stand for athletics. The town already allowed travel teams to have a season. The student athletes of Dover High School deserve to have a full season. Please make the right decision. The next comment is from Pablo Rodriguez, 309 Washington Ave. I am extremely disappointed with the rush decision the Board of Education made. This rush decision had a severe impact on the Dover community, and the fact that none of the voices in the community were not even taken into consideration is an awful lapse in judgment. How is every school district in Morris County able to run a full athletic calendar and present parents the choice to allow their children to participate, but Dover is unable to? I keep hearing how Dover is a town with unique circumstances due to housing and demographics. Are we going to ignore that towns like Wharton and Rockaway have very similar housing and demographics? How are the kids from those communities able to participate, but Dover can't? I think the Board of Ed should remove their personal beliefs and political agendas from a decision of this magnitude. This is coming from a registered Democrat who puts common sense over political beliefs. I sincerely hope the BOE does right by the Dover community and ultimately the student athletes of Dover. Thank you, Pablo Rodriguez. The next comment is from Arno Herrera, 14 Kensington Ave. Playing football has made a huge impact in my life. It was a way I was able to escape from my problems and any stress, but have fun at the same time. It also gave me motivation to become better as a person. With this being taken away, I've realized that I have felt less motivated to do much and I've created more stress. But I'm just one out of hundreds of people who feel the same way. I feel like if we were to have full sports back, it would be much safer to play at an organized area instead of a public park where anyone can be there. And I think it would bring back into many people who are hoping to get a chance to play once again. The next comment is by Jim Huff, 362 Penns Way. Good evening. I am writing in regards to the Gal sports season, specifically Dover football program, as I have been a fan for over 10 years. These coaches spend 365 days supporting and promoting the growth and the well-being of these student athletes. Studies show that the social and emotional well-being of these student athletes will be negatively impacted if there is no fall season. Some of these student athletes might feel that sports are all they have. It would be detrimental to the students, parents, faculty, and community if Dover sports do not resume in the fall. Thank you. The next comment is from Fred Walke, 46 4th Street. There should be no reason for non-participation in high school football. My hometown of Pequannock is starting their season in a few weeks, and I don't see any reason why Dover cannot. Fall sports has been a major part in the development of young players. Let them play, please. The next comment is Gabriel Gomez, 85 Brook Drive. What progress, if any, has been made to ensure that there is anti-racism curriculum and training in our public schools? The next comment is Anthony Gangini, 109 Highway 46. Not allowing the football program to resume this year will do a huge disservice to these kids. Being involved as a student athlete helps these young adults grow to be the best possible versions of themselves. By taking this away from them due to the pandemic that has a 0.007% death rate is not only unfair to these kids, it's unfair for the parents. They will now be forced to find other types of extracurricular activities to keep their children off the computer and out of trouble. Please reconsider. Thank you, a concerned resident. The next comment is Stephanie from Dover, New Jersey. I'm writing because I believe that students should be allowed to play as it gives the kids an opportunity to be outside, just as we have outdoor dining, and away from the computer screen that they are behind all day. Their school year was already taken away from them. They should be allowed to enjoy outdoor activities, especially when the virus rate is slowing down. Please consider. I know this will make a lot of kids happy. The next comment is Daniela C. Rockaway. I'm writing this today because I believe the students should be able to participate in athletics this upcoming fall. It is very crucial for these young individuals to develop strong leadership skills that can be learned through playing sports. Sports has always been a benefactor in keeping young adults socially and physically active as well as out of trouble. Please reconsider. Thank you. The next comment is Felipe Davia, 309 Washington Ave. I would encourage the Dover Board of Ed residents to research and educate themselves on the school to prison pipeline. If you haven't already, to get a better understanding of how more police officers in our schools creates an environment for the criminalization of our youth, and disproportionately affects Black and brown communities. Across the country, activists have been calling to defund the police and invest in social and mental health services that will empower our students and allow them to succeed. Many cities across the country are starting this conversation and have already moved to remove police officers from our schools. Why Dover thinks it knows better is beyond me. Expanded social service programs along with stricter gun laws will provide us a long-term solution to the problem of school shootings that has plagued other areas of our country. That is all the comments I have.
Thank you. Dr. McLaughlin, would you like to address any of them at this point?
No, I think I may be addressing several in my report.
Okay. For the policy, Ms. Viveros, will we be, is that, I don't have it in front of me, is 1643.03 in our agenda?
I have it down as policy 1648.03. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
so maybe that's the one
in
they were
there.
talking about. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, can we move forward with approval of minutes, please, at this time? Is there a motion to approve the executive and regular meeting minutes for August 18th of 2020?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Okay, Mr. Miller moved the motion and Ms. Viveros second. Any boards have discussion points?
Ms. Chrysalis, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Mullen and then Ms. Nutting.
Yes, on the old agenda, we're approving the code of conduct. If we could, expand that to make sure it's the Board of Education code of conduct. It would reflect that.
Mr. Minkowitz, is that possible for you to edit, please?
I'm sorry, Ms. Mullen, could you repeat that?
Yes, under the old business, we approved the code of conduct. If it could be expanded to reflect it's the Board of Education code of conduct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Nutting?
Before Ms. Salas, I just wanted to ask a question of approving the minutes. I did leave early at the last meeting, so I just wanted to make sure I'm saying, approving the minutes properly.
Okay.
So how would I go about that?
So you can either abstain from approving them for the part that you weren't there, Or you can certainly say up to, only this section, if you know exactly what section that you left, which I don't remember. And I know you were not feeling the best. So if you abstain, that is totally acceptable.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion points? Okay, so may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes, up until the second public comment section.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. I just wanted to make a note. I know that we were very specific in the public comment section this time around, and I'm grateful that that is the case. I know specifically now with this being remote. I know that's not usually so detailed in other minutes, but I just wanted to kind of point that out, and thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move to communications. It is with great pleasure that the board receives and responds to correspondence from the community, especially when they're voicing their opinions and concerns. This time around, we received a petition from Mrs. John Hoyt requesting that the board and superintendent's office reconsider reinstating the fall sports season. We also received several emails from great young advocates, as we heard in our public comment section as well, from our soccer team urging and requesting fall sports season to be reinstated. Do any other members have any other full board correspondence that you would like to share, or administration?
I do have a email from Senator Anthony Bucco that was sent and received in response to correspondence that we had sent to his office supporting the student programs that were cut in the state budget, inclusive of our Tiger Wrap program. Senator Bucco responded indicating that he's a strong supporter of the program. He shared a statement that he had made on behalf of the program being restored. And he also indicated that it appears that there is bipartisan support to have the programs put back in the budget, and that he estimates that would occur at the end of the month when the state budget is adopted. So I just wanted to share that piece of correspondence.
Thank you. I wanted to expand on the public comments. The board also received the letter from the Mine Hill Board of Education and one of their support for the SROs. And even though they do not have a seat or vote at the table, they wanted this board to consider their request to support the SROs. Okay. If there is none other communications, then
I just want to, and this came in very late, right before the board meeting, and it was addressed to you, Ms. Grisales, so you may not have seen it. It was from Ms. Vega, and she was making reference to both the remote learning in the schools and fall sports.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, I come right out of work,
Yes.
so I was not unable, to check my messages in my volunteer job after my regular paid job. So
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so administrative reports, Dr. McLaughlin, you have the floor.
Hey, thank you.
reports,
Good
please.
evening. This is our first meeting of the new school year. And so it's always a joyful one to welcome our students back to instruction, our staff back to instruction, and our families to the Dover educational experience. And with that in mind, remote instruction began for all students on September the 8th. The reports from our schools have been positive ones, relaying a high degree of student participation in our live classes. Mac laptops were distributed to our students in grades 7 through 12, and a very high percentage of our students did retrieve their personal device right away, and a number then came in at later times to retrieve them. I don't have the exact number, but I can say that the large majority of our devices have been disseminated. If anyone hearing this particular presentation has not retrieved a device for their 7th through 12th grader, we will work with you to provide that as soon as possible. So I would encourage any family to get in touch with the building principal to make that happen in the middle school or the high school. As the board is aware, we're awaiting the delivery of 1,400 iPads for students in grades K to 6. As you also know, there is a nationwide delay on any technology that schools are ordering. So we are caught up in that, unfortunately, and the latest information continues to project delivery during the month of November. If we get some good news and they come in before that, we will certainly share that promptly with the community. In the interim, a great many of our elementary students have been on hand for their virtual sessions with their teachers, and parents have been very responsive to picking up student learning kits, which have been prepared and distributed from our schools, and which will occur every 2 weeks during this period of time where we're waiting the iPad delivery. Hotspots, which is a big addition to the technology that we've been able to acquire. Hotspots, which provide internet connection for families who may not have internet capability. They have been purchased, they have been received, and they are being readied for distribution. And we today put a form on our website, right in the news section, that we ask parents to let us know if they do not have internet, who their children are. You only need one hotspot per family. It's a 12-month situation. So these hotspots will continue to provide internet connection throughout the course of the whole academic year to anyone in the household who has student learning activities that require internet connection. So we're anxious to give them out, and those forms are due back on Friday. So we're looking forward to hearing from our families. As some of you, and as I've already mentioned, some of you may be aware, the state of New Jersey terminated funding for school-based youth programs that provide support and counseling to many schools in our state. This was particularly devastating to Dover since it eliminated funding for the Tiger Wrap program effective September 30th. As I mentioned previously in the correspondence section, letters have been written to our local legislators, and Senator Bucco's response indicating that a likelihood that there may be a reversal on that is very hopeful to us. And we are certainly looking forward to that restoration should it occur. We have, in the meantime, however, proceeded to utilize the Rutgers-based program 3 days a week, which we had put in our CARES Act funding, originally slated for the elementary schools, to designate that service for our high school students. We are maintaining the full-time clinician, which we contracted with Rutgers Behavioral Health Care at Dover Middle School, so that will continue, and we do have the resources of the agency and those the individual who's in place and the part-time clinician that we hope to hire. The district, in a related sense, these two things do kind of fit together. The district and town have worked together on a first-time policy for school resource officers, which is modeled on the ACLU policy. And I know I don't want to take anything away from the policy committee in their report later, but that particular policy does call for extensive training, calls for data collection, and it's included tonight as a first reading. So we'll continue to consider any commentary that occurs as a result of that policy tonight. And we will post that as you may recall, any policies that go on for first reading then are posted on the website for further public comment. So beginning tomorrow, any first reading policies inclusive of the SRO policy will go on that part of our website, which is under the Board of Education. There are policies and then policies under consideration. The resolution that is on the agenda tonight for a new contract for Class 3 SLEO officers, replacing SROs, is going to be put on hold until October. That is based on a request by the new town administration and the new CFO for the town, who just began their work in our community. And in a conversation that I had today with Mr. Bennett, he asked for time to be able to review the town's budget before making a mutual commitment to this particular service. So we are looking forward to working with the new folks in the town administration. And we are putting together a meeting to go over this further, as well as other areas that we can collaborate on. We remain very interested in a change to SLEOs, which are Class 3 officers, who are recently retired law enforcement officers who are specifically assigned to work in the schools. That is a big difference between an SRO and an SLEO. An SRO can be utilized in multiple capacities as an active police officer. In addition to the school, they could be pulled from the school if needed, but an SLEO is only authorized to act as a police officer within a school or school related function setting. So we look forward to our meeting. We look forward to reintroducing that contract as an agenda item in the near future. We'll have a representative with us, most likely from the Dover Police Department, when we introduce that item. And if as we anticipate, there is increased savings from this new arrangement, we can also dedicate that to even more mental health work as we go forward. So we are not waiting on that. We are moving ahead with our part-time clinician. We are also very optimistic that the funding for Tiger Rap will be restored, and we will certainly keep the board up to date on anything that we hear. And we are also looking to build upon our services by savings in other areas, such as the one I just mentioned. Tonight, I'd also like to address the issue of in-person extracurricular activities. As the board is aware, and as we heard in the recent public comment, a determination was made to suspend all in-person activities based primarily on the high incidence rate of COVID in Dover. And I do want to emphasize the impact in Dover is 3 times as great as any town in Morris County, even those right around us. And I know that in one of the public comment sections tonight, there was reference to the fact that there are towns around us that have made different decisions. And our decisions were unique ones made to our community. And I believe the governor was correct in allowing communities to make decisions based on their local circumstances. And although the COVID rate of spread has slowed down, yes, since the spring, but it is still very active in our community, with 11 new cases having been documented within the last month's time. The age breakdown also, because we've received feedback from individuals about who is susceptible to COVID and who is not. In our particular community, we have seen that 268 cases have been with individuals under the age of 40, and in total, 577 beneath the age of 60, showing that this is truly an age-neutral condition. Certainly, our young people are not immune to COVID's dangers. So all of this gives me serious concern in reinstating in-person extracurricular activities. And at the same time, there is great awareness of the benefits that are provided through physical exercise. And our students, we know, are profoundly in need of healthy social interaction after many months of being removed from situations where they do interact as they typically would in a school setting and outside the school setting. We held a forum with a number of our high school students last Thursday. That forum was attended by Ms. Dallapaloo, Mr. Franks, and Mr. Sean Bullock, as well as myself. And the students made a strong case for reinstating in-person extracurricular activities. I would like to say this time that with real hesitation and some very significant worry, I am recommending tonight that we reinstate the fall activities with some very stringent guidelines in place. And I think that's important to emphasize. These include, but are not limited to, an understanding that one confirmed case of positive COVID will shut down that particular team for 14 days. And I know this is a short season of practices through September and games starting October 2nd or October 3rd, and then just a few weeks of competition. So I know 14 days is significant, but it's important to emphasize that we feel that one case is enough to close that particular team down for 14 days, or that particular program, because this is not just a team, athletic team decision. We've also asked our students to come together, which they did very promptly, to put together a pledge of conduct for COVID precautionary behavior. A pledge, basically, that each of our students who would like to be active in one of these programs takes. And again, this pledge has been put together with student representatives, many of whom were on the call last Thursday. So I'd like to thank our students both for their advocacy and for their proactive involvement in being part of a solution. And that precautionary behavior refers to behavior both on the field when they're with us in school facilities and off the field when they are apart, because obviously the precautions we take carry over into multiple environments. And sometimes that's really where the risk comes into play. So this is a real sign of our students' commitment to the safety for all in our community. And we will continue to make decisions that place safety and the health of our students, the staff, and our community at the top of our priority list. I would like to thank all those who have engaged with dialogue with our administration, our community members, our parents, our students, staff who have participated. And we know that that type of communication is really important, especially as we address these very grave circumstances that continue to be in front of us. I'm also happy to share tonight, as a closing remark, that our second year of preschool implementation is well underway, and that our present enrollment stands at 178 students and continues to grow. Our new partners in the 2020-2021 school year provide us with the capacity to add many more students, and we look forward to providing our 3- and 4-year-old children with true high-quality preschool full-day education that will do so much to prepare them for success in their kindergarten year and certainly well beyond that. So it's with great enthusiasm that we go into our second year of preschool education in the district. And I'd like to thank all of our partners, those partners who joined us last year and the partners who joined us this year, for their faith in the program, especially amid the circumstances. And it's really been great to see our parents come out and to enroll their students in this program. And I'll continue to give the board updates in regard to preschool education throughout the course of the year. And that completes my report.
Handing over to Ms. Dalapoulou.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to start my report by thanking our teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators, as we all have worked together to open schools under the COVID conditions. There's a lot to get used to and a lot that is different this year, and I want to acknowledge all of the work that the entire district is putting forth at this time. I'd also like to thank our Dover parents and recognize all that you are doing at this time to assist us in your child's education. On the agenda for approval tonight is an extensive list of curriculums that were written by our staff over the summer in conjunction with their supervisors. I'd like to thank the teaching staff of the English, Math, Science, 21st Century Skills, ELL, and Social Studies departments for their work in bringing more electives to our high school students through the introduction of these courses. The thorough and well-written curriculums contain interesting subject matter that all of our students will have the benefit of when attending these courses. I'm happy to report that on September 21st and 22nd, a few select teachers will be participating in our first of many Vanguard Apple training sessions. 6 teachers from Dover High School will be meeting with our Apple Professional Learning Specialist to discuss a lesson that they will be delivering the next school day. The specialist will be working with the staff to identify an area where technology could be integrated, or also where an application that could support the lesson objectives be utilized. The following day, on the 22nd, the specialist will accompany those teachers in their lessons and provide direct additional guidance. In addition, the specialist will work directly with students to increase their knowledge and comfortability and use with Apple tools and other technologies. Finally, tonight I would like to highlight some student achievements. I'm proud to share with you that one of our students was a finalist in the Young Latina Talks event, which was sponsored by Today's Inspired Latina. This event, originally scheduled for the spring, was postponed until this past weekend. Overall, Dover had 5 total participating students, and we had 1 student who advanced to the final round of competition. Rosemary Vargas Santa was that student. There were 11 other finalists along with Liz Marie. The other participating students from Dover were our recent alumni, Ana Isis Cerrato, Catalina Bustos Rivas, Anabel Cabrera Cardenas, and Kelly Beth Valdez Villalobos. I'd like to thank Ms. Galindo, and Mrs. Swank for their assistance with this event. To quote Ms. Galindo, Liz Marie did a fantastic job presenting an outstanding and powerful message about her own life experiences. Moreover, she represented Dover High School and our district with pride, displaying what it truly means to be an exemplary student and a leader in our community. I have no doubt that she has a terrific future ahead of her, and I am very proud of her. Another Dover student that has been recognized for his hard work in a Harvard-sponsored pre-college program, that is Dover High School's Yovan Antonio Tenizaka, who in July participated in the course Cracking the Code of the Human Brain, from Neuroanatomy to Behavior. This course took students through the intricacies of our brains and how the brain adapts to injuries differently. Yovan was recognized at the end of this program for his active participation and engagement with the course content. In addition, he chose to further investigate the many theories on Alzheimer's disease, its causes, and possible preventions. Kudos to Yovan on a job well done representing Dover High School at Cambridge. This concludes my report.
Great, what awesome news to hear. Mr. Minkowicz?
Hi, I would like to discuss one item that's on the finance agenda, item number 6. It says the district accepts the following funds for participation in the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program through the State of New Jersey Division of Food and Nutrition. Academy Street, $27,610, East Dover, $23,980, and North Dover, $39,380. I reached out to our food service company and sent this onto them, and the response I got said, "Good morning, Jim. This is great news for the Dover School District. The district has participated in the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program in 2 schools in the past year, and this year the award was expanded to East Dover as well. The goal of the program is to increase fruit and vegetable consumption, create healthier schools, promote wellness, and change diet, impacting current and future health." So I thought I'd pass that note along from the food service company. And there's an additional finance item that I will ask to read into the agenda. We received it late this afternoon. It is to be resolved that the Dover School District accept the 2021 Digital Divide Grant in the amount of $808,153. So that's good news as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board members, are there any discussions, questions regarding the admin reports?
Ms. Grisales, just a point of order, if I may.
Yes.
I thought I heard Dr. McLaughlin say that the proposed contract for the SLEO, the retired officers, will not be on the agenda. but I'm looking at the agenda in our Google Drive and it's still there under item 15. Am I missing an updated agenda?
No, what I was saying is that both the Rutgers item, the clinician item, which I mentioned in the report, and the SRO will be tabled for tonight and revisit it in October.
Okay, so when we get there, we will table item 15.
Correct.
Got
And-
it. Thank
Yeah,
And
yeah, and the other item as well. Yeah, I'm not looking.
right, and
Right.
I had something else, but now I've forgotten.
They don't actually have to be tabled since the agenda hasn't been moved yet. You can just remove those items before moving that section of the agenda.
Thanks, John.
I wanted to, Dr. Sainer.
Dr. McLaughlin, you mentioned that we have 1,400 hotspots and that parents could respond with their need online. Has there been any effort to reach out to parents that we know have students that may not have internet? If they don't have internet, they may not be checking our website. So how?
Yeah, this will all be also conveyed through home announcements that our principals are making.
Thank you.
We didn't get confirmation of the award until this morning. So although we purchased the hotspots, we were told we could return them for 30 days. We wanted to make sure we had them in our hands. And fortunately, we did get the funding, as Mr. Minkwich just mentioned. So that digital divide money was applied to the hotspots as part of it.
Thank you. Ms. Ruiz?
Dr. Sander reminded me of my question. Dr. McLaughlin's report stated that the K through 6 students can expect to receive necessary devices come November. Do we have a process in place for the students to make themselves known to the district that they need it, or is it everyone gets one, or how are we going to proceed between now and November so that it can be as soon as possible?
Every student gets one. And I want to, that's an important piece because we've had some parent inquiries about whether or not they need to apply for that. No, every student will have an iPad device. And so that every student, once those are distributed from K to 12, will have a district device that is theirs. Be one device. The hotspots, you don't need to have one per student. You could just have it for the family because multiple people can use the hotspot. But the devices will all be student driven.
Okay, there are no more questions. I wanted to ask questions and really thank the administration for listening to our students. I'm very proud that our students advocated for what they thought their concerns and their needs are. I personally am also very nervous about the decision, as I know exactly what it feels like. I was a soccer player and it was my life as a senior, as a junior, sophomore and freshman too. But I understand. I'm also very worried about the health. And I hope that our students can remain as safe, and not only the students, but the families that they're going back to as well. I was wondering if you can comment on, is there any possibility for testing? Is there any possibility for temperature test taking before they're going out and sharing time together? And also maybe speak about a little bit about liability in regards to us as a district for opening those doors out, in the field.
Yeah, I don't believe, and Mr. Krug can correct me if I'm wrong, that from a liability point of view, the district is at risk. So that has not been a heavy factor in terms of the determination. In terms of part of the pledge that the students have drafted, I looked at a couple of drafts today, indicates that the students will not only sign off at their practices on the symptoms, which, by the way, everyone who comes into our buildings on a daily basis signs off on a symptom checklist. But we will have that. We will have temperature taking. We will have safe distancing. We'll have students with masks when they are not in play. So all of those precautions will be there. We will continue to monitor that. We also, in addition to that, Mr. Sean Bullock will be doing training with our coaches, not only to emphasize the safe pieces of this, but also to look at some of the potential socio-emotional issues that may develop in the course of competition, and in the hopefully that we do not see any type of bias towards our students because of how our town's been affected by other entities. But if there are, that we are ready in a response to that, hopefully a readiness that we will not need. But also working with our students to understand that if one of their teammates were to test positive, and of course that would have a big impact on the team, that we have to acknowledge up front that our understanding of that student will not be in any way ostracized or looked upon negatively for something that obviously he or she has no control over.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dr. McLaughlin, I didn't hear in regards to testing or temperature taking and those aspects.
The temperature taking is definitely in place.
Okay.
We do not have a protocol at this time for the for COVID testing.
Okay. Dr. Sainer.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. McLaughlin, you mentioned in your report, you mentioned extracurricular activities. Not all of our students play sports and still need the interaction with their peers. Can you speak to any plans or just general idea of how you will meet the needs of students who
Thank you,
aren't into sports?
because I meant to include that in my report. So thank you for catching me on that. A couple of things. There are not all are in person extracurricular or athletic teams. We also have our marching band, our color guard. They are included as a part of this as well. And then we have extracurricular activities that don't need to be in person. And that was actually a part of our student forum. So a number of our students asked, can we conduct student council via Google Meet? Can we conduct other activities like Heat Club or Interact through Google Meet? And absolutely, yes, we have moved ahead with the appointments, with the posting and the subsequent appointments for advisors for those clubs. And we will communicate that out to our student body so that students who can interact in a club virtually can. One of the big positive pieces of news is that Ms. Janet Gaynor-Mantanti, our supervisor of fine arts, has identified a virtual theater play, and we will be launching that. So we're excited. And so we're going to provide as many opportunities for our students as possible, not just this in-person piece. And again, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to expand on that a little bit in my remarks.
Perfect. Thank you. Does any other board member have anything? I have one more. Okay. Ms. Dallapaloo, I was wondering if maybe perhaps here or in our curriculum section, there were 2 public comments talking about anti-racism in our curriculum for the children, I'm assuming, and for the school. Can you comment on any plans or anything that you could see that could be infused into it, either here or in our curriculum section when you think appropriate?
I think in the curriculum committee, I could speak to that in October.
And oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, if there's no other, we can move forward with administrative approvals.
Ms. Crisales, I just wanted to
Yes.
piggyback if I could. I do also, it's very important to me and to our community that our students have a civic education, are engaged in the decision-making process. And while I'm quite honestly terrified, I am moved and encouraged by the collaboration between our students, our community, our administrators in making this most difficult, truly life and death decision. So I commend our students for creating a pledge and for organizing themselves and advocating for all of us. I think it's a great example of advocacy and a great win. When we advocate, we don't always win, as I know from many personal losses. So I commend our students and pray for their well-being this entire season.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. And hopefully our spectators can also follow and be part of it when appropriate. I know there's strict guidelines as well with spectators. So any questions, please reach out to the schools so that we are all safe. All right, so administrative approval. If there is there a motion to approve administrative reports as stated in the agenda?
I think, Ms.
Let's
Crisales,
see,
I think
where
that's
are
for
we?
the administrative items that follow.
Correct.
the
So
district, yeah.
you're talking about from the district goals, right? Number one, Board of Education adopts the
Yes.
following district goals. Yes. So if there a motion to approve those district goals,
So moved.
Ms. Mullen and Mr.
Second.
Who is that? Ms. Viveros? Okay. Second, are there any comments, questions from board members about the district goals? Okay, Mr. Minko, oh, Dr. Sainer?
I'm sorry. The third goal is design, implement, and sustain processes and procedures in the district's business manner. And then one of the items is in partnership with Special Services Department, improve semi-processes that result in a minimum of a 10% increase from fiscal year 20. We've made tremendous progress in this area. We went up 21% in 2020 from 2019. And this is money that comes back into our school that can be used for various items. So I like this goal. I would hope that we could repeat that 20% increase as well, but we're getting closer to the 100% mark. So if it's possible, I think that would be great.
And before we go to Ms. Nutting, what is SEMI again?
It is the Special Education Medicaid Initiative.
Thank you. Ms. Nutting?
Thank you, Ms. Grisales. I just want to say thank you. And I personally, just looking at it and knowing that it would help our students, the Orton Gillingham teaching qualification for our district facility faculty members, I think that would be a great asset to our district.
Thank you, Ms. Nutting. Any other board members? Okay, if there are no further discussions, Mr. Minkowitz, when we have roll call, please.
Ms. Cateno,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Crisales.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Ms. Mullen, may you lead the agenda for personnel items and updates if needed?
I move that the board approves the following personnel resolutions for the 2021 school year as listed.
1 second, Ms. Mullen. Mr. Crew?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, is this an area where a couple of items have to be removed from the?
Yes, number 15 and 16.
She was
You-
getting to it.
You were on top of it, Ms. Mullen, you were all over it. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, that's okay. Of course, new personnel employment appointments are contingent upon the required state and federal criminal history background checks in accordance with NJSA Chapter 116 PL 1986 and completion of required employee paperwork, including pre-employment verification. So we approved the following certificated staff appointments, and that's 1 through 18 with 15 and 16 removed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Nutting, second, to approve 1 through 18 with the exception of 15 and 16. Are there any board members that have discussion points? Ms. Ruiz, anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Ruiz.
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. Number 9, number 9 is approving a security guard for the evening meals program. And so I'm curious as to, given the pandemic and our current remote learning environment, when will the evening meals program begin? Where will the meals be served? And how will this operate during the time of remote learning given the pandemic?
Right. So this is a little different than the evening meals program that we applied for, the dinner program. This is evening meal distribution during the time of remote learning. So we are giving meals out at each of our buildings from 12:45 to 1:45, and we have crossing guards there before and after that time. So it's for safety of those who are retrieving the meals. But we also know that that time of the day may not work for all our families. So we have an hour from 5 to 6 p.m. at the middle school, just the middle school, where families can pick up, students or families can pick up meals. And the state did extend the latitude so that every family can have a meal. They do not have to qualify through the free and reduced lunch program. And that is in effect through the end of December. So it's a good opportunity to just, for those who are listening, to promote the meal distribution. We've had good participation already, but not quite at the numbers that we had in the spring or even in the summer. So we'll continue to try to get the word out there for those who may not know that we're distributing.
Thank you.
And Mr. Salas, I have a few more questions, if I may. Regarding number 13 and 14, sorry, I'm trying to look at two different things. Yes, this is, the points are about merit goals, but I have just a statement that I'd like to make before we call for a vote on not the merit goals specifically, but just the merit pay generally. And I did, to respect our culture of no surprises, did send this statement to our administrators and our board president and vice president, but I sent it very late today, so you may not have seen it. So I apologize if you didn't, and I'll try to make it short in the interest of time. Merit pay is something that is new to this district, so many of us at this board table or in the community may not be familiar with it. Merit pay was a tool that specifically in Northern New Jersey was used by districts to keep superintendents who would have otherwise resigned to take better paying jobs in New York City or across the state in New York, because at the time Governor Christie had placed a cap on the payment for superintendents. So superintendents under the Governor Christie administration could not be paid more than $191,584. And that just wasn't competitive in Northern New Jersey and the New York City area. So merit pay allowed districts to keep superintendents that would have otherwise resigned. That law was essentially abolished by the Governor Murphy administration on or about July 19th, 2019. So now superintendents are not capped. They can be compensated at whatever figure the board and the administrator decide is a just compensation for that work. We hired our superintendent on July 1st, I believe. And I don't recall and did not have the opportunity to review kind of our negotiations around that time or the superintendent's contract at that time. But presumably it was done with this cap in mind, right? Under that old rubric of you need merit pay to remain competitive. In 2017, 2018, that school year, just so we have our minds kind of wrapped around this, the average salary, according to New Jersey Advanced Media Analysis, the average salary for a superintendent was $155,631. And at that time, the Dover superintendent was paid, and who's not this superintendent, was paid $167,500. Despite that salary cap, though, districts were very creative in ensuring that their superintendents were compensated in a fair way and a competitive way as compared to their peers. So more than 30 superintendents were paid $200,000 base pay, even with that cap. So there was a lot of creativity, I'll call it, about that cap. Now the cap is gone, and the average salary in New Jersey, as of according to salary.com, as I'm not quite sure how reliable that information is. But according to that source, the average salary is now $180,403, but the range is between $147,000 and $217,000. In Morris County, and I learned this by consulting with our representative at the New Jersey School Boards Association, Charlene Peterson, a competitive salary in our region would really be considered $220,000. The salary of our current superintendent is significantly lower than that, and has been stated publicly before. My challenge with these points, this part of the agenda, is that our school district is underfunded. And it has been underfunded even before we suffered the pandemic-related budget cuts. And I know that we're expecting some more announcements, and I am praying that we get to keep Tiger Rep. And our students, our school community is the poorest in Morris County. Our students live in poverty. Thankfully, in the past year, since we have hired a new superintendent, we have been able to bring funds into our district. We now have the preschool program that I believe is part of either the superintendent or assistant superintendent's report today. We have breakfast after the bell. We have, Mr. Minkowitz announced another grant today, the Digital Divide Grant. We have the technology grant, and I commend this administration, this community, this board for ensuring that we make use of every available dollar to our students, because we deserve it and because we need it. So I share this information because this is a hard decision for me personally. I imagine some of you have thought about this decision as well. How do we look at our district in a time of budget cuts when our community, some of our community members make a fourth of what a superintendent's salary is, or even less. And some of our community members are completely unemployed with no access to unemployment insurance during this pandemic. I don't want to remind us of how sad it was to watch the food pantry lines in our community. So money is an issue. And when money is an issue, I know in our own home, even a penny spent matters, right? I've had arguments with my son, it's just ice cream, it's just one dinner out. Well, every penny matters when you don't have it, and we don't have it. So I just want to make it clear that at least I am aware of that. I know that the rest of the board is aware of that. I trust that our administrators are aware of that. And so is an approval of merit pay a use of funds that we don't have? Or is it an investment that ensures our students have the absolute best leadership that will ensure that these grants keep coming? And while I haven't done a dollar for dollar match, right? How much money are we bringing in with this preschool grant that we did not have before? How much money are we bringing in with the breakfast after the bell funding that we did not have before? And on I could go on with the list of grants. How does that compare to the money that we're investing in merit pay? And I just hope that that it is the right decision to approve merit pay, and that we do consider that dollar for dollar. Is this an investment, or is this money that could be spent elsewhere?
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. Mr. Crew, please shut me up and correct me, since this is a very delicate topic in regards to personnel. I think it's important for the board to also think about our contract, as Ms. Ruiz mentioned, and I think most of you were not here. I can't remember who were here when the contract was made specifically with Dr. McLaughlin, and is it part of the contract in regards to merit goal? I believe it is, as well as I think it's important to note that it is not historically what we're used to. And yes, everything Ms. Ruiz said it's very factual. And so I think we need to really understand the voting and the merit goal and the system. So if Mr. Crew, you could describe a little bit in general terms, this merit system that, you know, we are left with right now, and our administrators have to go through, and us as the board. If you
Sure.
could educate us a little bit on that.
Absolutely. So as Ms. Ruiz pointed out, the merit pay really developed back in around 2011 when the Christie administration, one of their early proposals was to put a salary cap on superintendent salaries. And that led to, it was pretty dramatic cap, because it was actually lower. The cap was lower than a lot of superintendents would have been making otherwise. And it did lead to some flight of superintendents to other states. It led some people not to choose to become superintendents, electing to instead remain as other administrators and not become superintendents. And it was better. It was strictly a Christie administration proposal directed at property taxes, and you know, it led to a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And generally, not many people liked the idea, but it stayed in place. When the Murphy administration came in, that was one of their agenda items, was to eliminate the salary cap, and that did happen in July of last year, July of 2019. I believe it was actually July 19th, 2019. And as Ms. Ruiz also pointed out, the superintendent's contract here, Dr. McLaughlin's contract, was approved by the district earlier that spring, and actually became effective July 1st. So his contract is in fact governed by the prior superintendent salary cap. His contract, his salary is specifically tied to what the cap amount was at that time. It was, I forget the exact figure, but $191,000, I think $584 plus there's a $5,000 addition because the district has a high school. So it works out to $196,584. You know, it's all public, it's in the contract. So he actually is governed by the salary cap still in his contract, whereas new contracts that have been adjusted since then are no longer governed by the salary cap contracts entered into the past year. But I think the trend clearly, as it was indicated by apparently the information that came from school boards about the county average in Morris County being something like 220,000. The trend now is clearly for going back to higher salaries. In the old days before the cap, there were many superintendents that earned higher salaries than what the cap figures were. And so now we're seeing that again. And basically the School Boards Association, the Administrators Association, basically everybody applauded the removal of the cap because it was, again, universally regarded as not having worked well, not having been a good idea. So it's now gone. However, Dr. McLaughlin is still covered under, his contract was under the cap. The merit goals are set up, and the process is important just to understand. Merit goals they are provided for in Dr. McLaughlin's contract. By the way, they are still permitted, even under the new law, even after the caps have been removed, districts are still permitted to include merit goals and merit bonuses. So yes, it was to some extent a way to give superintendents a little bit more money for their performance, but even under the new system where the cap is no longer in place, merit goals are still part of the law and still can be utilized. The idea is that the district can allow up to, provide for up to 3 qualitative and 2 quantitative, I said that backwards, 3 quantitative and 2 qualitative merit goals, up to 14.99%, I think it works out to as a merit goal. That merit pay, if it's approved, is not pensionable. So it's not pensionable, it doesn't become part of the salary. And the way it works, it is provided for in Dr. McLaughlin's contract. The way it works is the district must work with the superintendent to develop and approve the merit goals. They then have to get sent to the executive county superintendent, who reviews them and approves them as well. Then at the end of the year, the board has to certify whether the merit goals were met or not met. And that decision also gets sent to the executive county superintendent of schools, who must then approve the meeting of the merit goals. So the goals, while to some extent they are designed to, they do allow for some additional payment to the superintendent. They also are designed to be earned in the sense of creating merit-based targets and goals for the superintendent, or in this case also the assistant superintendent, to meet. And so that's the way the process works.
And in general terms, if we're talking about 220 is the average for Morris County, roughly
Sorry, not the average, it's the competitive rate.
Thank you. So I know that the merit goals are supposed to help, right, with raising it to that kind of competitive level for those superintendents like Dr. McLaughlin that are governed by the cap or that have a lower salary.
Yeah, and in fact, if other superintendents who are earning higher salaries that may be more competitive in the 220,000 range, they may also be getting merit goals as part of their. They may have merit goals as part of their contract as well, which would further increase the compensation.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments, Ms. Sainer and Mr. Robles?
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. I did some research this afternoon and looking at other districts in the county that are similar, high school districts, districts with a high school as opposed to a K-8 district, districts in terms of size, right? The things that one might compare. And Dr. McLaughlin's salary with the bonus, with the merit goals, falls right into the middle. There were districts that had higher superintendents with higher pay with and without merit goals. There were districts that had superintendents with lower pay. So I did not look at every, full disclosure, I did not look at every school district in the county, but he is right in the middle of that goal. And I think when I raised my hand to make a comment, that was when Ms. Ruiz was commenting on the dinner program. And I think, and she alluded to this, we have to, first of all, look at the money that has been brought in, and not just the money, it's not just about cash into the district, but the programming that we have been able to provide. We went from, I don't even remember, 50 or 70 half-day pre-K seats to a capacity of, I believe, 400, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So how many 3 and 4-year-olds how many more 3 and 4-year-olds are we now able to serve? We're serving breakfast after the bell and now dinner as well to our students. And to steal a line from Ms. Dallapaloo, Maslow before Bloom, hungry kids don't eat, they don't learn. And so being able to feed our hungry children, especially now when, as Ms. Ruiz mentioned, we have parents who are unemployed and maybe not even getting unemployment. So while we have families struggling, we are meeting a need. And I would hope that more parents, please go out and take advantage of this program to help your families. The Digital Divide Grant that provided hotspots, that we are going to be able, once we get those iPads in, to go 1-to-1, K-12. Right? Regardless, right? Hopefully COVID will end at some point and our kids will go back to school. But regardless of that, we will be able to provide 1-to-1 for many of our children who do not have their own device and have to do homework in the evenings, even sharing a device. So, and then the final point that I would like to make is that we are contractually obligated. We signed a contract, a 5-year contract with Dr. McLaughlin in 2019, stating that we would offer merit pay. And it is not just, writing a check. He has to earn it. And we are approving those goals tonight. These are additional, in addition to his daily job. And, I wouldn't do it for the world. I had a conversation with Dr. McLaughlin about my concerns with opening sports and how we could make that feel safer on Saturday afternoon. And I sent him a text and he answered right away, because he is never off the clock as the leader of this district. And so we are contractually obligated. We made a promise to him, like we made a promise to our teachers and our custodial staff and all of our employees to honor that. And so I feel that we are obligated to fulfill our obligation to meet the contract.
Mr. Robles.
So first, I'd like to thank Dr. McLaughlin for such a difficult conversation and him being a good sport. I know it can't be easy to be in your space right now, but I think all of us without exception, are proud of the work you've done over the last, whatever time. I can't even count. It seems like forever already because of how much you and your team have accomplished in the time that you've been in our community. But, I think regardless of any discussion that we may have about the merit goals and the validity of them or whatever the case may be, I think nobody could say otherwise that you guys have done. And obviously we're talking about you and the administration in particular with Dalapalu as well, but I think overall, you guys have brought many things that this community desperately needed. And so I just want to, first of all, thank you for that. And I think when you consider the amount of work that it takes to move this community through this pandemic, number one, to move this community through the where we were years ago to where we are now, it's no light work. And as some people have alluded already, it's a lot of big steps that have been made. And so I just want to state for the record that I have no issues with having the merit pay be something that we consider continue to, as Dr. Sainer alluded, it's a contract, but I think there's no question in my mind and in many of the people in our community that you have more than earned it. And I'm sure you will continue to keep the work going at the level that you have been for the time that you've been here. And so I don't even blink an eye when I talk about the work that you have done and how much I'm proud of, what we've accomplished as a community. And I look forward to the years to come and the amount of time that's left in your contract. And hopefully when that time comes, we can talk about what's next for good things.
Renewing.
And so thank you for your work and all the things that you've been doing.
Thank you, board members. It's great to hear that. I know that you may not get, and I know that both Ms. Dalapalu and Dr. McLaughlin have always said, reach out. And I don't know that if you reach out to them, they will reach out right back to you. And I mean, I'm on the phone with him almost every day, Saturdays, I think last night, or Sunday night, like at 9 o'clock. So I know that the work is there, and with the work that will happen with these merit goals, right? That's one of my biggest pleasures to see that it's not going to be easy merit goals, sorry guys, right? But I think that you have set your own merit goals based on what you have assessed our community needs. And that is what I'm super grateful for, because these merit goals truly reflect what our kids, students, staff members, and community need. And we are going to hold you accountable to that. You know that you've experienced all of us on this board. And I'm sorry that the system is this way, where you have to fight for something that's already in your contract, it feels like. I'm glad that we're having this robust, conversation, because it's important to also be educated on how we're voting and our community to know how we're doing it. So if there's no further other discussions from anyone else, is there there is a motion, right? There is a second. Ms. Mullen moved, Ms. Nutting second, 1 through 18, except 15 through 16. Or no, 15 through 18 is what we're removing, correct?
No, 15
What's
and
highlighted?
16.
Oh, okay, all right. 15 and 16 removing and approving 1 through 18. Mr. Minkowicz, may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes, I just want to make sure, not point 15 on the class 3 officers.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales,
Yes. Okay. Ms. Catano, would you please provide this board with an update on this committee negotiations?
So we met on August 27 for our third negotiation session with the DEA to continue to review both contracts. On September 10th, we had another negotiation section with the DEA. That's conclude my report.
Thank you, Ms. Catano. Ms. Nutting, would you please provide us with an update on this committee and lead the agenda items for curriculum, please?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Grisales. So we met on September 8th at 5 p.m. We were online for maybe 74 minutes. We did have some guest speakers that evening, Ms. Gensinger, Ms. Heimerman, and Ms. Barabas. So the curriculum committee started with the introduction of the department supervisors. Ms. Heimerman is the math department supervisor, which she spoke to us about curriculum that was up for review. Math and Toys and Games, which highlights the use of math in board games, TV shows, and the introduction and coding. This is an elective for the upperclassmen. Cyber security is also an elective, which educates the student data safety and network security. Forensics is another elective that was spoken about, and it with the same token, it's about science, thinking, data, and biology. Genetics is also another elective that would touch the subjects of blood types and coincide with forensics. The elective mentions before are classes given to the upperclassmen as semester classes to give those with the mathematic enrichment classes. The enrichment class for mathematics is to help those students who have not met the state requirements for graduation. Her speech for the evening as Ms. Gensinger, supervisor of social studies, she spoke to us about the ELL and non-ELL curriculum elective called literature and film. This class highlights the literature that is also the film that's the connection between reading a book basically and watching a movie and the project of the area of the literature which it takes place. We also talked about 8th grade history revision, incorporating LGBTQ, and also throughout history of our country, as well as adding it to our US history too at the high school level. Our third speaker, Ms. Barabas, spoke of the AP research curriculum and how the students pick their own topic and the research is student driven. The students have to present their research at the end of the year. We also talked about English for enrichment as a study prep to help with high school grad requirements, which coincides with the math enrichment program. Ms. Dallapaloo talked about the preschool program creative curriculum and how it incorporates science, social studies, math, language. And Symposium 2 is up to date with the WIDA standards. The area of technology was spoken about with the hotspots being worked on, and just like many other districts, the order of technology and being delayed. And as far as the athletics, Dr. McLaughlin was trying to set up a meeting with students to talk about, which we already heard about earlier.
Tia, you're muted. Not too long. We just missed like the last sentence. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
No,
I
just the
didn't
last
realize
sentence.
it. I was looking down and trying to make sure I didn't
Nope.
forget anything.
Just the last sentence, Mama. Just the last sentence.
Just the last sentence. It was talking about Dr. McLaughlin trying to set up the Zoom meeting with our students, which I was happy to hear, and the decision that was made. So, being that said, we'll go back and we'll get, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure I read it correctly for you guys.
You need the numbers, 1.
Yes, I would like to
1 through 18?
Make a
15,
motion.
1 through 15.
Make a motion that we approve the following numbers 1 through 15.
Okay, is there a second? Mr.
Second.
Robles, is that second? Yeah, Mr. Robles. Is there any discussions from board members? Ms. Nutting and Dr. Sainer.
Okay, since we were talking about the hotspots, I had a question with the hotspots and the access around, I guess, for internet access. What happens with tardiness or, absenteeism due to the fact of not being able to sign in or having trouble with doing so?
So right now, all of our schools are working with their pandemic response teams on an attendance system that takes the particular circumstances into account. And as you know, for example, at the high school on a period by period basis, it's a little bit different than it is at the elementary school within a self-contained class. One of the things that our teachers are doing this year is keeping a continual spreadsheet of students and asking students about their internet access and making sure that we maintain a more deliberate, more specific, authentic count of students who may be having internet difficulties. And one of the big differences too from the spring is that we have student activity kits that are being prepared on a continual basis until such time as we receive the iPads. So all those things have a little bit of a role to play in terms of counting attendance and how attendance is taken into account. So if a student's working on a packet, we might ask a parent, even just, for example, I'm not saying this is what we're doing, but to, send an email to say, my child worked on the packet today. Something, that we're not waiting 2 weeks and then saying, okay, we're going to count all 10 days because we got a packet back. And that's why we turn that work back over to our teachers who are really most in touch with our families and can help put together a system that's both accountable, but also takes into account the wide range of issues that some of our families are dealing with right now.
Okay, and the second question I had is, how is the math and English enrichment class students picked, or I guess delegated to those classes? And the second part of the question is, I know it runs as a semester class, so is it considered a semester being first and second marking period, or is it just second marking period, or first marking period just by marking periods itself?
So the students are selected based on their need to meet the graduation requirements. So it's not so to speak, it's not an open enrollment. It's really focused on those students that need to focus on skills in order to pass one of those tests, be it the PARC, or the NJSLA, what have you, to pass graduation. In terms of it being a semester, can you repeat that question? I just want to make sure I understood what you were asking.
They're semester classes, so is it a semester considered a marking period, or is it considered two?
I think it's probably considered two. I think a marking period would be way too short for that type of a course to run. So I believe they run for 2 marking periods.
Okay, thank you.
Now I forgot. I think it was Dr. Sainer.
I just wanted to highlight 2 things that from the curriculum report, and thank the I can't remember the acronym, CPAG, the Special Education Parent Advocacy Group, something like that's definitely the gist. I don't know if that's the actual name. They applied for a grant to provide one of those awesome filtering water fountains for the high school. And so I just, they're advocates, they're advocating for their kids, but also providing something, this grant will help all the students at the high school. And then number 8 highlights that we applied for and received a grant from the American Dairy Association to help us with our meal distribution. So again, we're building partnerships in the community and bringing money and services into our district. And then I had 2 questions. Mr. Minkowitz mentioned the fresh fruit and vegetable program. How does that work while we're in remote instruction?
That's a good question. I'm going to have to pose that to the food service provider.
And then my second question is, we're approving speech services. How are speech services, OT, PT, all of those special services that some of our students need, how are we providing those at this time?
It depends. It depends on the student and what the arrangements are for IEPs. It could be through some of our related services are provided through teletherapy.
Okay, anyone else? I have comments. I in the curriculum, the ELL history, which is the English language learner, right? It's great to see Latin American assignments infused in those units. I know that we had a discussion as well as, incorporating those Latin Americans as well in the non-ELL programs or curriculums. And that's a little similar, or in addition to kind of the anti-racism infused in curriculum that Ms. Dallapalooza said could be seen or is in her plans to look at October. So I think it's great, you know, especially with the LGBTQ as well, you know, being infused and part of the history for our children now, and they will be able to have a more diverse, right, knowledge based. I wanted to find out a little bit about one of the things is the accommodations, right, that are in each of the curriculums. And I know that some we were not able to see because of the drop down way of, you know, of the view, but I know that there's accommodations for, I think, every single one, correct? And teachers having the flexibility of moving those accommodations, or the teachers being able to add more things to that curriculum, that they're not only married to that curriculum. How do we manage who reviews them to ensure that those accommodations and anything else that the teachers add are appropriate, age level, and all of that for those children? How is that supervised, or the oversight of that? And
So
I know okay.
I think we have to be careful because there's two different types of accommodations, right? So there's accommodations that a content area teacher or a general education teacher in the elementary world can make for a student in the class. And then there's accommodations that are made when a student has an IEP that are, you know, IEP driven. We are required to meet those accommodations and make them, and also the modifications that are spelled out in the individual education plan. So when you're looking at curriculum is written for general education students. The IEP specific accommodations and modifications would come directly from the special education teacher that supports that particular student with that content. Those would be found in individual lesson plans that would be developed by that teacher. The accommodations in Atlas are chosen in a more broad view, a more general view for the entire class, or for students in that particular class. The supervisors, as they are reviewing that curriculum, would then review as part of that process those, in particular, those selected accommodations and modifications. So there is a distinction there between the two different types that can be part of a program.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further comments, then we move on to voting.
Ms. Grisales, if I may?
Yes, Ms. Royce.
Thank you. The Amistad law of 2002 requires that our districts incorporate African-American history into all learning materials and texts, but specifically the social studies curriculum. And I just want to celebrate this curriculum committee. As always, there's so much material to review. So I can only imagine the long nights trying to get through all those documents, especially when you're not an educator yourself. So I understand that it's possible that the members of the committee may not yet be as familiar with the Amistad Act. And I myself, to me, the social studies classes in the lists of the curriculum that we have might include the U.S. History 2, the 8th grade social studies, and the ELL history and literature through film, right? Those to me would seem to fit into the social studies rubric, but maybe not. So I'm just curious as to what, if any, African-American history, what, if any, pieces of those curriculums would satisfy the requirements of the Amistad Act, and whether any of our educators have ever applied for or benefited from kind of a supplement to the act that was enacted in 2019 that would allow educators special opportunities to travel and learn more about the transatlantic slave trade, that would better inform their education with regard to African-American history in our country. So that would be my question, if any of our teachers have explored that, have benefited from that, or if that's something on our educators' radar. And if the curriculum committee has assessed these curricula with an eye to the Amistad Act. And if not, is that something that is already planned for a future time, like the anti-racism curriculum? It sounds like it's something planned for October.
Yeah, right now, that's not, was not a direct focus of the committee. As you mentioned, that legislation, hopefully when it was enacted was something that was a focus of the curriculum being put together. Although that being said, I think that we're always looking to make sure that all of our curriculum, whether it's social studies or beyond, is looking at multiple cultures, multiple races, multiple points of view. I think that has to be at the forefront of what we do. But if that's an area that the curriculum committee would like to take a focus on as we move forward, we could do that. I certainly wouldn't want to give an answer to that off the cuff because we haven't conducted an analysis with that lens at this point. You're raising a point that you would like the group to look at. That's what I hear from your comments, Carol.
Well, and just to clarify, it would be something that the whole board tasks the curriculum with, right? So if it's something that where the curriculum recommends maybe, and if Ms. Ruiz, if you're proposing, a focus, then the whole board would kind of have to assign that task to the curriculum committee if that is a need, obviously with the recommendation of the administration. Like Dr. McLaughlin, you alluded to, hopefully in 2019, that was a focus. I don't remember, being on the board in 2019 and having any of that discussion.
2002, the law was passed in 2000.
So is there any, did I hear anyone else? Any other comment, anything else in regards to kind of what that focus is specifically, so we can move forward with the curriculum? Okay, all right. So thank you everyone for your comments. May we move forward with a roll call, please? We have Ms. Nutting who has moved it and Mr. Robles who has seconded 1 through 15.
Ms. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Mullen?
Yes.
Ms. Nutting?
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz?
Yes.
Ms. Viveros?
Yes.
Mr. Robles?
Yes.
Dr. Sainer?
Yes.
Ms. Grisales?
Yes. Mr. Miller, would you provide the board with an update from the Community Relations Committee, please?
Sure. The Community Relations Committee met on September 5th. We had discussed Tiger Rat, loss of funding, Dover fall sports, computer equipment that was delayed, and the SRO program, and all of which were reported by Dr. McLaughlin. We also discussed Connecting Dover meeting on 8/26, in which they had made some announcements of restarting ESL classes. They had received a grant to distribute Chromebooks to families in need. They are restarting the free farmers market in Dover, and also Narcan training in Dover, sponsored by Hope House. So all of these events, everything is on the Connecting Dover website. So please look, there's a lot of really good things to participate in, a lot of good information that, unfortunately, probably a lot of people in the community don't always get that information and know that it's available. So please pass it on. I also attended the Parents as Champions for Healthy Schools virtual graduation ceremony on the 31st of August. And the training that was given to parents of various school districts through SPAN encouraged parents to be the change you want to be in your schools. And so during this presentation, there were lessons learned from other communities where they presented projects that helped promote social and emotional learning. Projects ranged from playgrounds to wellness and healthy food. This past year, only 6 schools received grants for projects they proposed, and Dover received 2 of those grants. So the Dover Middle School with Lucy Toledo and Shamara Washington, they worked to create an environment at the middle school courtyard for reflection and gathering, to find oneself. They included a bench so that they can all come together. And then at Dover High School, Angela Ramos and Rosie Awatsi proposed the water infiltration system, which we approved for the high school. So it was great to see, parents becoming so involved in trying to make a difference in schools, and for the training that was presented to help empower parents to take leadership roles. There was another Connecting Dover meeting on September 8th. There was a presentation by Head Start, which has been around for 55 years and centered in Dover. And I guess the beginning of Head Start was when the Dover location was created. They have satellite locations in Parsippany and Wharton, and their services range from prenatal to 5 years old. So a lot of great things that Head Start program is doing for our community. Then there was a presentation by the Maternal and Child Health of Northern New Jersey, and they presented Power to Protect New Jersey Against the Flu in New Jersey. And so there's a campaign that's going out that's going to be promoting folks getting their flu shot. And it was a very interesting conversation because I've had the flu shot and then I didn't get the flu shot. But they said this year, especially because of the pandemic, the symptoms of the current strain of flu and the pandemic COVID are very similar. So it's better to get the flu shot so that you're not wasting tests on people thinking that they have COVID. So it's very crucial to try to get your shot before the end of October to help with the current strain of flu that could be coming around. So that was a very interesting conversation that they had. The Community Relations Committee will be reaching out to Mine Hill to set up a meeting in October and to schedule time for Dr. McLaughlin to be present at a forum of their choosing to give a school district report. And we will be working on the community relations action plan in October. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Are there any board members that have discussion points? Ms. Royce?
Thank you. Mr. Miller reported that more information about the various programs available, including the possibility of a Chromebook for a family who doesn't have one, might be found on the Connecting Dover website. And I just want to make sure that Mr. Miller is that a Facebook page? Does he mean the maternal, I forget the name of Carlos Caprioli's program, that website? I just want to make sure our community, if they're listening, know exactly where to go.
Oh yeah, it's Connecting Dover on Facebook.
Okay, but and the Chromebooks, is that a grant through the Partnership for Maternal and Child Health?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because there is a website for that, for those that might not have Facebook. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I got that right.
Thank you. Okay, so can we move then to policy? Ms. Viveros, would you please provide the board with an update?
The policy committee met on September 8th via Google Meet. And I'll start with item 1, which is one of 2 readings. Policy 1648.03, which was brought up by one of the community. That's the Restart and Recovery Plan. This revision came in for anyone with full-time remote learning. Policy 3130 and policy 4130, they're both assignment and transfer. One is for teaching staff, the other one's for staff members. The following sentences have changed to: the board will consider and may grant the request of a teaching staff member who requests transfer to a new position with the recommendation of the superintendent. And we also changed the date for this next sentence. Teaching staff members shall be given a preliminary written notice of their annual assignments no later than June 30th. Policy 4125, employment of support staff members. In accordance with the requirements of No Child Left Behind Act of 2001, the following has been added to item number 3. To satisfy this criteria, a passing score on the ETS Parapro assessment is required. Policy 4145, layoffs. In the following sentence, we removed assistant superintendent and changed it to superintendent, reading, The superintendent shall continually review the efficiency and effectiveness of district organizations and recommend to the board the creation and abolishment of support staff positions and the relocation of duties and positions. The next item, joint policy with Town of Dover, which is SRO. The policy committee Deputy Chief Delaney on our call, and we spoke about the policy that was developed from the town, which was shared with us for our input. This policy is using the ACLU model language. I'll move on to all items under number 2 for second reading. And I ask that we move all items under item 3 for one reading only. So I move that we approve item 1, 2, and 3.
Can you clarify on item 4? Approves the following newly created job description of device and applications manager.
Yeah, we did go over that in the committee, Ms. Rivera, so I'll take that one for you. That is as there was an appointment in personnel. It's a newly developed job description within the technology department. And we obviously had to make sure that we did that tonight to coincide with the appointment of an individual to that position. Typically, we do discuss job descriptions at policy meetings. That one wasn't ready when we had our policy meeting.
Okay, so if Ms. Viveros is moving 1 through 4, is that accurate?
Yes, I move that we approve items 1 through 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miller was second. Or is there any board discussion points?
Ms. Grisales,
Ms. Mullen and then Ms. Ruiz, please.
This is a very small point for the policy committee, but it's for the first reading of 3130, 4125, and 4130. You have a little consistency in wording there that you might want to look at, and it's from recorded roll calls to roll call majority. I would suggest that you make one decision or the other for the board approval within that policy, just if you want. I mean, it doesn't really impact it, but I think it would be good. So thank you.
Policy members, did you get that, Ms. Viveros? Okay, Dr. McLaughlin.
Yeah, that's just part of the verbiage. So I was just reading the sentence how it reads now. It's nothing that,
So kind of the suggestion to make it consistent, right, is what I think I hear Ms. Mullen saying. Okay, so with those edits, making it consistent. And Ms. Ruiz.
Thank you, Ms. Grisales. My statement and numerous questions are with regard to the joint policy with Town of Dover on the SRO under item 1. The New Jersey School Board Association Security Task Force issued a report, which we all have access to through our New Jersey School Board Association membership. And that report was based on research on school shootings, as well as communications with law enforcement, equipment manufacturers, school officials, and notably, it included school officials like Dr. Janet Robinson, who was the superintendent of the schools in Newtown, Connecticut, where, of course, the god-awful domestic terrorism occurred that killed 20 children and 6 adults in just 4 minutes. As awful as they are, mass school shootings are rare. We've had 10 in our country since 1999 when Columbine suffered their domestic terrorism. But we have a duty to protect our students from even one death. So no matter how rare it is, absolutely, we must ensure our schools are safe from domestic terrorism. That task force report emphasized ways to be safe from mass shootings, and that would include discern, delay, and disrupt. These were the major tenets of this report, that in order to keep ourselves and our students and our teachers and our community safe from mass shootings in schools, that we would need to discern who is trying to come into our buildings, delay anyone that may be trying to get to our teachers, to human beings within the building, to slow any intruders' movements through the buildings. And disrupt is obviously blocking the intruder from access, and ensuring that law enforcement is notified and can respond as quickly as possible. In addition to the Security Task Force report recommendations, we can also look to, and must look to, the New Jersey Department of Education School Safety and Security Manual Best Practices. And there too, we can find recommendations about a comprehensive plan to make our schools safe, specifically from domestic terrorism, which is a reality in our world today. And some of these recommendations include, some of the most effective and cost-effective include entryway redesign with secure vestibules. So, like before you even get into the building, you're secured in a space. You can't get to the students, you can't get to the teachers until we are sure that you do not pose a danger to life in the building by your presence. Also interior locks in the classrooms. Sadly in Newtown or Parkland, sorry. In Parkland, that was part of the issue. The teachers could not lock their doors from the inside. They had to expose themselves to the danger of the shooter by leaving the classroom and locking it, which I can't even imagine how terrifying that was for the students and for the teachers there. I met some of the survivors from Parkland, so I don't have to imagine. I have the memory of my conversations with them to know how terrifying it was for them. Another recommendation is ballistic film, which is a shatterproof shield that you can put over existing windows. And that's one of the ways that the shooter got into the Newtown school building, is that they shot through a glass. So this ballistic film would prevent the shattering of that glass, even if a terrorist tried to shoot through to then unlock the door or get through in some way. Of course, like everything, those things cost money. Security upgrades are costly. So we have to assess what the threats are, what the risks are, what the costs are, and what the needs of our school community are, and work within our limited budget, right? New Jersey has very different culture and laws regarding assault weapons than, for example, Florida. So one of the things this report and the guidelines and data and research show us is that an SRO, a school resource officer, did not neither prevent nor intervene to prevent death in neither Parkland or Newtown or many of the other places where we have suffered domestic terrorism in schools. It's just too short of a time for one or three or however many SROs armed with a pistol to stop a terrorist with an assault rifle. Like I said, in Newtown, it was 4 minutes. So we really, it is ineffective to invest in the appearance of security. Certainly a police officer can make some of us feel safe. It's a uniform, somebody with a gun, but the appearance of safety is not safety. We need evidence-based strategies to keep our school community safe. And not only have these SROs not been able to intervene when it comes to mass acts of mass terrorism throughout our country, there are several studies that show that SROs can actually be harmful to the mental health and the long-term well-being of students, exposing them to the school to prison pipeline, exposing them, particularly Black students and students of color, to the use of force and to arrest. So while there's no evidence to show SROs can prevent or mitigate terrorism in our schools, there's evidence to show they can actually be harmful. The ACLU's research recently after the increase and the state mandated presence of SROs in schools shows that schools all over the country are now reevaluating. A lot of us were rightfully so terrified after Columbine, after Newtown, after Parkland, and we're looking for any way to keep ourselves safe. And we look to the police. But now with new research and with COVID demanding so much of our budgets, schools are really reevaluating where to invest to ensure our students are safe. I know in a previous meeting, I think it might have been the last meeting, Dr. McLaughlin told us that the school only mandates 1 nurse. We have 4, which is a huge blessing, and I'm grateful for that. But Dr. McLaughlin said that 7 would really meet the needs of our students. We are now hopefully not going to lose the 3 clinical social workers we have thanks to Tiger Wrap, and thankfully we have mental health services through the partnership with Rutgers. But the school to ratio, or the student to counselor ratio is 250 students to 1. And most schools, and certainly our schools, are not at that ratio. Our students need counselors. We are suffering the mental health effects of COVID. We heard our students advocate for their mental health, and that's one of the reasons they wanted their sports season back. So we face very difficult decisions that I didn't anticipate we would face as board members when I first decided to run. And one of those decisions is this SRO policy on our in this part of the agenda. Our district pays, I think, over $250,000 for SROs. How many vestibules might that buy us to keep our school actually safe and not just the appearance of safety? How much ballistic film over the windows at Dover High School could that buy us, or over the glass doors? I think it's like $16 per square foot. How many nurses? How many actually clinical social workers or licensed clinical counselors could we hire to meet the needs of our students with this funding? You know, is that the best investment of $250,000 in a district that just simply is underfunded, like we've said before? So given these recommendations for the New Jersey School Board Association, from the New Jersey Department of Education, given the reality and the data from several sources, not just the ACLU, it's troubling to read the 8-page joint policy with the town of Dover on these SROs, which specifically states, and I quote, "School officers will handle student misconduct and school resource officers will handle criminal matters." Nothing about mass shootings, nothing about terrorism. And my first question after kind of all that, well, I've had some questions, right? How many nurses, how many counselors can we hire? How much security systems can we invest in with that money? You know, who determines what is a criminal matter, right? When I was a student at Dover High School, somebody stole my jacket. They were given the opportunity to return the jacket. Police were not called. That person did not get any charge. It was done, but that is a theft. You know, if one of our students to steal another student's phone, is that student then going to get a criminal charge? Or again, I'm not proud of it, and I'm a better person today, but when I was a student, I had a school fight. Many of our students all over the state are part of a school fight. And when that happened, I was hurt. I ended up in the hospital, but there was no charge, right? I'm fine. I wasn't arrested. The other person wasn't arrested. What would happen now with school officers in our building? If there is a school fight, are our kids going to be arrested? Because that's an assault, right? Where is the line between violation of our student conduct and a crime? And we have criminalized average adolescent behavior. And what if an officer breaks up that fight, right? And the kids are flailing and hit the officer? Is that now an assault on an officer, which is a very grave charge? You know, how are our students going to be protected from that school to prison pipeline that is very real, that does exist, that has been documented? And these are questions that we need to ask ourselves and need to ask the police department. And the questions may be answered as we look through this document, which again, does not ever speak about preventing mass shootings or protecting our students from mass shootings. And instead, it talks about our students being and this euphemistic language, you know, our most cherished resource. Our students are not our resources. Our students are human beings who deserve to be treated with dignity, not to be criminalized and policed when they're in the safety of their school buildings. In another section, section 1B, this document talks about essentially searching and interrogating our students. We only need to remember what happened to the Central Park Five to understand the very real dangers of Black and Latino students being interrogated by the police and what harm an entire community can suffer as a result of that. Do parents need to give their authorization for an officer to interrogate their child or a guardian, parent or a guardian? Do they need to be present? Are we going to have lawyers present, or officers are just going to be able to interrogate our kids willy-nilly because they are in the building? Section 2 of the document talks about training. Again, nowhere in that section does it say anything about trainings to prevent or intervene in the case of a mass shooting. Nowhere. The training talks about 40 hours of pre-service training and 10 hours of annual in-service training, which I'm trying to respectfully compare to all the training that our teachers and our counselors and our nurses go through to engage with our students. 40 hours, 10 hours. And that's supposed to be enough to police our kids and interrogate them? Do they have bachelor certificates? And now they're retired. So when we talk about community policing and the improvements of police departments, where there have been, I've had the great pleasure of long conversations with the deputy chief in our community, who I trust and who I respect and who I think does a great job. But I've also had the disgust of watching one of our police officers beat a teenager senseless in a mass video. Yes, Ms. Grisales, I will wrap it up.
Thank you.
In section 3 of this same document, it talks about, and makes it very clear, it is bolded and underlined, that this school resource officer is not our employee. So then what recourse do we have? What authority do we have, either as a district administrator or as a board, when that officer violates the rights of our students? Or harms a student, God forbid, or fails to meet any expectation of the employment. So this is a very one-sided contract. And again, in going to subsection I, where it outlines the duties of the officer, it talks about truancy. We're going to send police officers to kids who are truant. I was a truant student. As I think many of you know, I dropped out of high school because at that time I was undocumented, I was working, and I had many challenges that our students still face today. So you're going to send a police officer to their school? And if they are arrested, for our kids, that could lead to deportation for some of our kids. And I'm sorry, not kids, some of our students. In line 24, it doesn't include the identification of race and ethnicity and gender. And it's a fact. In the entire country, Morris County is the absolute worst in racial disparities of incarceration. A Black person in Morris County is 22 times more likely to be arrested than a white person. And we are bringing that system into our school district. And that is a harm. So for those reasons, I encourage everyone on this board to consider revisiting that contract. I know that I'm in the minority and that it's likely that we will have officers in our schools. But if we're going to have them, let's make sure whatever agreement we have with them is not as one-sided as this document and protects our students and specifically those who are truant or those who may engage in behavior caused by trauma that is then criminalized.
Thank you, Ms. Royce, for your perspective, for your research, for your work. You have obviously done your research. I hope that other board members do the same and inform themselves in regards to their further voting, right? As this is our first reading and we move on to the second reading for the next board meeting. So thank you very much, Ms. Ruiz. I see Ms. Viveros. Is there any other comments? Okay, Ms. Viveros.
I just want to say, as a board member and as a parent, I feel safer having an SRO or a class 3 officer in our schools. I feel it will give the kids a safer environment, mentoring. Maybe they can conduct presentations on youth-related issues, give them advice, guidance. And this also helps us foster a partnership with the school and the police department. I just wanted to give my opinion on this.
Thank you, Ms. Rivers, for your perspective as well. Okay. I believe we see no other interest or desire to comment. If we have, yeah.
Sorry, can I have answers to my questions, please?
Say that again?
Can I just have answers to my questions, please, to the extent that the administration has the answers?
I'm not quite sure what questions you're referring to, Carol. I certainly heard, your position on a number of areas. We did develop this policy. You provided us with the ACLU policy, and I know you had concerns that we have a policy. This is not the contract. I know at one point you referred to the contract. The contract's not on the agenda tonight. The policy is, and one of the concerns that I did hear you express previously is that you wanted documentation of what type of training and what type of data would be provided. So that was one of our chief goals as we looked in the policy, was to develop a policy that addressed those areas. We could certainly consider, as we meet in our next policy meeting, I don't want to speak for the policy committee, but any inputs or improvements on the policy that you would like to submit before our second reading.
I could repeat some of the most pertinent questions. Who determines what is a criminal matter and how is that determination made?
Sorry, Ms. Reese, it was, for me, it was hard also to focus on which questions you were referring to. So I apologize for kind of just moving on. I thought it's kind of your perspective on it. So that was one question. What was the other question?
Well, we can start with that one if there's an answer for that one.
Well, I'm going to yield to Mr. Crude on that because I think criminal matters are defined. And so certainly the police officer would deal with a criminal matter. For example, I could give you examples. If someone had a gun in school, if a student brought a weapon, a knife, that might involve the officer because that and would involve an officer whether or not there was an officer in the school. So for example, if a student brought a knife to school, the police would be summoned to the school. So that I could give an example of that. But I think to give a comprehensive list of what's criminal and what's not criminal, we're certainly I did hear one of the examples or one of the worries that you had was about a fight. We've had school resource officers, at least in the year that I've been employed in the district and was housed at the high school. And there were some fights, some pretty significant fights, and nobody was arrested for that. So whether, that yes, it could be considered an assault, but if one of the concerns, and I can only speak off a year of experience, if one of the concerns is that if you can use the word typical, I don't know if there's any typical school fight, but if a fight that some of us may have seen, would that be dealt with differently because there was an officer in the school? At least in my experience, no, I haven't seen that. But I don't think I can at this point offer you a comprehensive list of what's criminal and what's not, but we certainly could respond to scenarios or examples, as some of the ones that you raised in your comments.
And does an officer need parental permission to interrogate a student?
It's actually, school administration has a much wider latitude to interrogate a student. So if a police officer needed to interrogate a student, there's more restrictions around that. And typically, again, whether or not an officer was in the school or whether an officer was called to the school, we look at those situations very carefully before law enforcement is provided access to a student for interview. So the officer, and it's one of the points that we tried to make in the policy, is not a disciplinarian. They're not there to review scenarios that come up on a everyday, or at least on a typical basis. And as a matter of fact, it'd be much more restrictive to have an officer involved in that. So because what's allowed to school administration provides a lot more flexibility.
Do these officers have any training to respond to domestic terrorism?
I believe the officer training, and this would be a great one when the deputy chief is with us to respond to, get that type of training through their law enforcement training, which they're also obligated to have, not through their school-based training. I think the policy tried to make reference to what is the specific training that an officer would need as it relates to an educational institution. But for example, when a lot of these shootings were happening, and having been on many teams, crisis teams in districts, the law enforcement shared with us that they've received extensive training, and training that has evolved so that they approach a terrorism situation in a specific way. So would a responding officer, be the first one to enter the building? Would they wait for backup? Do they come in a V formation? Do they respond to people who are casualties, or do they go beyond them? Those are all part of the law enforcement training. And I believe that whether an officer is assigned to a school or whether they are in a local police department, they all receive that training. But the deputy chief would be a better authority to refer to that.
Are we sending an officer to a truant student's home?
Typically, we do not use our officers in a truant capacity.
How and when will the data be shared with the board regarding the age, gender, sex, ethnicity, and race of any student arrested or questioned or interrogated?
And I believe that's one of the pieces that this policy wanted to look at. And certainly it's not a cast in stone policy. So if the information and the feedback and the reports that the board as a whole would like to get from the SRO or Class 3 program, that can be delineated by the board and put into the policy in a more specific nature if it's not already there.
And other than these 40 hours of training and 10 additional hours, what professional certifications or degrees do the officers have? Do they have bachelor's degrees? Anything other than the requirement to, whatever requirement to become a police officer at the academy?
Right. There's not an educational piece, because this is not a teacher certified position.
Thank you. Any other further questions on this or any other policy? All right, so let's remember that this is a first reading and that the policy will be up in our website and posted for the community to review prior to our second reading. These are all really good questions and really good discussion. I think it's important for Chief or Deputy Chief Delaney to answer for us. The policy committee, for me personally, I think it's important that we are ensuring that our children are not targeted, because my experience is that once a police officer is involved, a police officer has to follow certain criteria, even though the school may not want him to. So I think those are the scenarios, Dr. McLaughlin, that you're talking about, right? The stealing, the finding maybe drugs or paraphernalia in their lockers and they're under possession. What does that entail? And do our kids get a chance to try again, or is it immediately something that the officer has to be involved with because she is already there?
Well, again,
so
I want to emphasize, Ms. Grisales, that whether we call an officer to the building or the officer is in the building, those scenarios like drugs, we don't have an option if we find drugs. That's something we have to report. So the officers would come and deal with it based on that.
So if we could kind of just make sure that that is something that everyone on the board kind of understands and sees and has all the information for the vote. Do I see another hand? Dr. Sainer?
Would it be possible, Dr. McLaughlin, for us to, as board members, we've heard some comments regarding the policy. The policy committee will be meeting again in 2 or 3 weeks. But we anticipate that Deputy Chief Delaney will be at our next board meeting. Is it possible to facilitate a collection of questions or comments on the policy so that we are not trying to wordsmith this policy at the October meeting and or the contract, so that we can get these questions, comments in beforehand, so that we can, these scenarios that Ms. Ruiz brought up, we can have answers to them at the meeting. So can we maybe set a deadline and a way to get these questions collected so that we can, everyone can be prepared to answer the questions and we can move forward with discussion and a vote?
Well, I see, Ms. Royce, I see you. I think we had the policy presented to us and this was the opportunity to bring up those questions. So I don't know if we need more. I mean, yes, we have a second reading. But this was the chance for us to really, duke it out on the first try. If the whole board is in agreement with it, certainly we can kind of do something like that and task the policy committee to field these questions and send it over to Chief Delaney beforehand.
It was mostly the questions for Deputy Chief Delaney so that he came prepared to, right? Like no surprises, right? We prepare questions for our administration so that they can come prepared with the answers. The same for him.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Ms. Ruiz.
Ms. Grisales, thank you. That statement and the questions embedded in it was sent previously, as our culture is of no surprises, to the policy committee. And they, of course, can share it with Officer Delaney if it is going to help them change in any way the policy or review in any way the policy before the next reading.
Is that something that anyone opposes to for the policy committee to do?
Ms. Grisales, I don't think we have, that's for them to decide. I don't think we can oppose how they move forward.
No. I'm talking about us as a whole, right? Is that something that we as a board find helpful and that for us to move forward with?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding, Ms. Grisales. Are you asking if it's okay to send them more questions in addition to what we've already said? Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yes, correct. Everyone okay with that? So please get your questions out, perhaps if maybe 2 weeks before the board meeting, so that way we can kind of send it out to Deputy Delaney. Am I saying his title correct? Please correct me. Deputy Chief Delaney, so that way he can be prepared to answer those questions for our second reading. Okay, great. Yes, Mr. Robles.
Just a question. So after we do the second reading, then the policy is done and we move forward with that?
If we approve it and vote on it and have majority vote, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's the policy, not the contract. Okay, all right. So I have a motion by Ms. Viveros and a second by Mr. Miller to move.
I'm sorry, Ms. Grisales, I have one last question. No. Did the policy committee actually compare this proposed policy with the ACLU model policy?
Policy?
I have parity there. I don't know.
Ms. Viveros, you got cut off. Can you start again, please?
I personally have not compared them. I don't know if Dr. McLaughlin or someone else has.
Anyone else in the policy? Including you, Dr. McLaughlin?
I believe the language is very similar, but we can certainly disseminate that, and members of the policy committee can look at both.
I can just say a couple quick things about that, if you like. Some of the language, it clearly is verbatim from the ACLU policy. Like the language on training, for instance, the 40 hours and the 10 hours appears to be, I don't have the ACLU one in front of me right this second, but it appears to be virtually verbatim from the ACLU policy. There's also a provision in there defining when, how to distinguish between criminal, what's a criminal act versus, I know that was another question that was raised. And my recollection of when I had one time read the ACLU policy is it's probably verbatim from the ACLU policy. It says disciplining students is a school responsibility. It goes on to that, but then it says absent a real and immediate threat to students, teachers, or public safety, incidents involving disorderly conduct, disturbance, disruption of schools or public assembly, student trespassing, for instance, student loitering, use of profanity, and fighting that does not involve bodily injury or a weapon shall be considered school discipline issues to be handled by school officials rather than criminal law issues warranting formal law enforcement intervention. So I do think, and I think it's a good idea for the policy committee to maybe compare the documents, but
Yes.
that language is in this policy that you're considering tonight. And I'm pretty sure that that's verbatim from the ACLU policy. I think someone had mentioned earlier that the police department was trying to work with the ACLU policy or use that. So it appears they did. Now that doesn't mean, I don't know that they, every word for word, the entire thing is similar, but they definitely incorporated things from the ACLU policy.
Okay. Yes, 1 second, Ms. Ruiz. Yes, go ahead.
And that's, so the policy committee is clear on my objections. There's an entire section in the model ACLU policy that's titled Respect for the Right of Students. And that's not in this policy. And that's the most crucial for me. So while some of the language is verbatim, the language on transparency and accountability is excluded. The language on respect for the rights of students is excluded. And the, sorry, there's
other sections.
There's a duration. Yes, there's a, I can re-forward. You have the document, Ms. Grisales, because this is language that I have submitted to every single policy and personnel committee since 2008.
I think we as a whole board, I think the policy, certainly if it's something that everyone agrees with, that, that will be worth having the comparison. We want to make sure our kids are protected, even if they made a mistake of punching someone else, right? Or by mistake, or involved in any kind of what could be perceived as criminal, and that way we differentiate between the discipline. I think for me, most importantly is the safety of all, the staff, the students, and all of us as a whole. So if we can be very careful and very vigilant and ask questions, and please, be aware of all the information. So if that could be forwarded to the whole board, I think I have it. If I don't have it and you have it readily available, Ms. Ruiz, send it to me again and I can share it with the full board. But, I trust the policy committee will look out for the safety of all children, those who make mistakes and those who don't, right? Is that it? Did I see anyone else? Okay, all right. Are you sure, Ms. Ruiz? Okay, so I have Ms. Viveros who moved, Mr. Miller who's second, 1 through 4. May we have roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes to all, with the exception on the joint policy with the police department on SROs, a vote of no on that.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales,
No until further information. Yes, and no to the joint policy with Town of Dover section until I have more information.
okay.
Okay, finances, Dr. Sainer, may you please lead us on this committee and agenda items?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Grisales. We met on September 1st. We received an update on various school facilities projects, such as ductwork installed at DHS room 305. The ductwork and the drop ceiling grid were done. The trailers with their paging system that will be housing our 6th graders from North Dover when we return to school. We're ready for furniture, some HVAC projects at North Dover. We received an update on the Belmont property. A lot of the final finishing work done, carpeting, AC, refrigerator, bathroom, badge reader, kitchen cabinets are all done. And at that point, we were still waiting for window treatments, outside lights, kitchen fixtures, light covers, and LED fixtures. We are bringing in a consulting service, specifically an environmental company, to specifically check out our HVAC and to see if we are ready to reopen or if we need some kind of work to our HVAC system. The big question is the MERV filter. As you know, we've discussed this previously. It is recommended that we have a MERV 13 filter. However, we're not sure if we would need to retrofit our current HVAC units or whether that MERV 13 filter will fit as it is. And there are some malfunctioning HVAC units in EDE that Eastover that need to be remediated. We discussed reopening the fields. We had a plan in the spring to reopen the fields. COVID got in the way of that. So we were discussing it again. The answer is yes, it's on the table, but there's some work to be done. A lot of the track equipment, such as the hurdles and the pole vault mats, there is no current storage for them, so they are out, just in the area. And so we need to solve that storage problem before we can open the facility to the public. In terms of finance, the administration has submitted the updated budget with the state aid reduction in it, and the preschool contracts have all been signed with the exception of one partner at that time. I assume that has since been signed. That is what we discussed in finance, and I move that we approve items 1 through 6 under finance.
Is there a second, please?
Dr. Sainer, do you want to add that one item number 7, be it resolved that the Dover School District accept the 2021 Digital Divide Grant in the amount of $808,153?
I absolutely do want to amend my motion that we add in the reading of the $800,000. I apologize.
No, thank you.
Okay. Wait, is there an amendment? It wasn't really fully. The first one wasn't fully done yet.
You're right. I make a motion that we accept items 1 through 6, and we also accept the item that Mr. Minkowitz read into the minutes.
Perfect. Is there a second to approve items 1 through 7 in finance?
Second.
Ms. Viveros, second. Is there, are there any board discussions?
Ms. Chrysalis, if I may.
Yes,
For
Ms. Mullin?
Mr. Minkowitz, I have a question about one of our expenditures that I saw late this afternoon as I'm turning the check register thing, looking through the expenditures. It was for the architects. Ducara Rubino Architects for $142,286. What architectural, was that this building? Or is this projects to come?
No, I believe it's for all the work that they've been doing on the trailers and the schools.
The trailers, schools, the classrooms, okay, great.
Yes, and we met with them, and we've been meeting with them with Dr. McLaughlin the past couple Friday mornings. And Dr. McLaughlin was great in reviewing those and making sure they were charging us for what they should be charging us for. And they have been charging us for the time that they've been putting in, because originally we were supposed to meet more, but with the COVID and everything that was going on, so we ensured that we're only paying for what the services that we receive.
Thank you. It was for all our building modifications we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen. I believe I saw another hand moving. Ms. Ruiz?
I'm just curious about our long-range facility plan. It's my understanding we're supposed to have submit one every 5 years. And I know that we've discussed it before. I know we've approved amendments to it before, but I don't recall actually seeing a full plan. And that may be because this is the first time I've ever served on what used to be the Building and Grounds Committee, now the Finance and Facilities Committee. So I'd like to know, where is that plan? How does all this fit in that plan? And when is the next plan do? Is it 2020 to 2025 or what's going on with this 5-year plan?
That's a good question, the history of it. I know that it was approved for submission, I believe, in the last year. So we're trying to get final approval from the state for its submission from the architect, but it was approved by the board to submit it within the last year because I had to look up the resolution. I found it. But as far as the renewal and the next time, that's something I'll have to ask.
And where is the plan? Not the resolution, the actual plan.
The plan is, I actually have a printed copy of about 100-page plan that is old. I mean, it's an old system. There's a lot to it. We can probably get a summary plan. I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Crute remembers when this was instituted, this archaic system of required documentation for a plan and approval, but that's what it seems like the copy I have in my office is.
And I'm not sure the status of Dover's plan, but for several years, I think the entire state system was basically like in limbo. They weren't improving plans for a while. They're old. I remember architects telling me that the state's old software for the plans, there were issues or whatever. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that the board may have approved something a while ago and the architect is still working on getting the state to approve it. But again, I'm not familiar. The architect would probably be the best person to address what the current status of the plan is.
I'll ask the architect. You know what's interesting, in my prior district, I tried to print out a copy of the plan and you needed Internet Explorer 10. And I actually had to find an old computer to plug in to actually look up the plan to print it out. So I'm not even sure if that's been rectified yet, but I will ask the architects for some type of summary or copy.
Yeah, because I thought I must have seen this somewhere. It must have been an attachment somewhere, and I didn't find it on our drive, in our email. I didn't, and I actually have paper copies of previous before COVID things, so I couldn't find it anywhere. But I did find, I tried Google. I was like, well, maybe it was uploaded to the state, and it's, if I just Google it, I'll find it. I didn't, but I did find that other districts have their long-range facility plan, or at least a summary of one, on their websites. So whether or not it's a requirement to have one on our website, it might be helpful for us to set that as a goal, thinking about how much many of us, I certainly value transparency, to have that summary on our website when we find it or create it.
Right now, just so that it's clear, our long-range facility plan has to be remedied before the state will approve it. So right now we are addressing that, and that does have to be done because for our new facility, all those facilities that are being worked on, the long-range facility plan has to be approved before we can move into them.
And so the old one hasn't been approved and a new one would have to be approved as well.
There's a current long-range facility plan that incorporates all these elements in it that is in process.
Got it. Okay. All right. I wanted to ask, is there a possibility for maybe have a virtual tour for, say, of the new classrooms that were, or the process, since all the offices have been moved out of the high school and things like that? Is that a possibility? Is anyone interested in kind of seeing that? I know I didn't put this
the ones that we could right now give a decent tour of the trailers, those are finished. The Academy, North Dover libraries, and the high school areas are in the midst of construction. So I don't know that you'd see what you want to see. I mean, we could certainly take some video footage and show you the state of where they are.
That would be great.
We are having construction meetings, as Jim mentioned, every Friday, and our target date of having in-person instruction and the completion date are right now.
Okay.
We continue to be told that they're in sync. So we should be completed, but certainly the spaces in the trailers and the spaces here at Belmont, I think would also be good for folks to see. So.
Thank you. I think pictures would be awesome. Video, kind of the progress of it, especially looking forward to more space in classrooms, right? And seeing that for our students.
Yeah, 11 classroom spaces. So we'll have
Awesome.
11 new classroom spaces as a result of the change.
That's great news. Thank you. Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Crisales.
Yes. Is anyone interested in taking a 3-minute break? Oh boy, I see no. I see yes. So majority, I would need to hear majority to take a break. Miss,
Move into recess.
I'm sorry.
Did I make a motion to go into recess?
I'm gonna make a motion. Who's
Second.
gonna second that? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Ms. Crisales,
Aye.
what time are we coming back?
So would be 3 minutes is what we're saying, right? Any opposed? Mr. Miller, don't roll your eyes. I need to, so thank you. Anyone else? So 3 minutes, please. It's 9:35, so please be back in 3 minutes.
And turn off
And
your
please
cameras.
make sure you turn off, thank you, your cameras and your volume. Thank you. We have quorum and 3 minutes have passed. So we will be getting started as soon as Dr. McLaughlin and Ms. Delapoulou are back. Mr. Jaminko is here. I wish I had brain power to call them. All right, Dr. McLaughlin, do you mind if we start until Ms. Delapoulou catches up?
I think we're also still waiting for Ms. Nutting.
We haven't quorum.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so if we can move with our old business. The board received a request to discuss anti-racism training and from the ad hoc committee, and they're going to be providing us with an update. Ms. Viveros, Dr. Sainer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. The ad hoc committee to talk about anti-racism training, we accidentally met on Labor Day. And we compiled our research. So Ms. Viveros and I had done some research. Ms. Mullen also, when she joined the ad hoc committee, suggested some research, and we narrowed it down to a organization called the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, and they provide what they call an appetizer training. And unfortunately, the training is quite expensive. So while we are working on possibly seeing what resources we might have in the district, as well as making community partnerships so that we could open this up to more people, Ms. Catano reached out to a friend who can also provide training. And she just sent an update tonight that I'm not prepared to talk about, but we will meet again to move forward kind of simultaneously, seeing if we can do some short training soon and some more extensive training in the more distant future once we figure out the funding piece. Is there anything else that I missed that anybody from the committee would like to add to that? I think they're asleep. I am too.
So we needed the break.
We'll make another meeting and hopefully have another update for you in October.
There's a holiday coming up, right?
We'll find one to meet on. Don't worry.
And if any other board member has any resources, contacts, please reach out to the ad hoc committee so we can, get this moving, because I think all of us find it very important and relevant during these times. Okay. All right, if there's no further on that item, I'm going to move forward with new business. I have obviously we have a new regular meeting time. We started today earlier at 6:30. Thank you, board members, for polling your availability, and the majority stating that they were being available to start earlier for now the foreseeable future. Please know, should a need arise to revisit this time, please inform the board and bring it back up in new business so we can readdress and poll again if needed, especially once we start returning in person and things like that. It may change. Okay. We also, the Community Relations Committee is a 4-member committee. We realized there's no alternate, especially now that they're meeting. In the beginning, they weren't really tasked with meeting on a monthly basis because they already had enough meetings to attend, but they have a specific task from our board goals that they're addressing. So Mr. Miller, Dr. Sainer, and myself spoke about what would be the best way. I don't know if, Mr. Miller, you had a chance to inform your committee's members, but certainly after discussing it, Dr. Sainer and I will be available to this committee should a 4th member not be available, and we can step in as an alternate if needed. Just let us know when the meetings are, and we'll kind of, duke it out between the 2 of us who can be there. Okay. That's all I had for new business. Anyone else have anything that you did not submit? Ms. Viveros and Ms. Ruiz, go ahead. I saw Ms. Viveros and then Ms. Ruiz.
I sent this message in advance for Dr. McLaughlin, and I just wanted to read it for all of our parents. According to the revised calendar of August 18th, 2020, it still shows November 5th and 6th that schools are closed. And for any parents that have to request, say, vacation or days off, I just wanted him to advise if this is still correct, that those days are off.
Yes, those are the NJEA days, and those are unaffected by our calendar change. So those are still days off.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Viveros. Ms. Ruiz?
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. This is for a next agenda, not to discuss tonight. Given the discussion about the Amistad Act on curriculum, I would propose for the next agenda, or if not the exact next one, a future agenda, that we would have a new business discussion about whether the full board wishes to task the curriculum committee with a Amistad Act focused review of the curriculums moving forward, and maybe retroactively to ensure compliance with the law of our curriculum. Not to discuss now at 9:44, but at a future meeting.
Thank you for being sensitive to the time, Ms. Ruiz. Yes, we can certainly, if the board, is not opposed, we can have a discussion in our next one to see if that's something that we're interested in, and maybe doing a little research in regards to it beforehand. Okay, perfect. All right, if there's no other new business discussions from any other board member, we'll move forward to the second public comment section. Mr. Minkowitz, are there any in Spanish that Ms. Ruiz would need to interpret? And if you can kind of read that as I have to read my comment, my spiels before that, but if wanted to give you the heads up so you can start looking and sending it her way if needed. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. To ensure fair and orderly expression of each comment, each statement shall be held or read to a time period of 3 minutes. Public comments limited to items on this agenda shall be entertained for approximately 30 minutes upon the discretion of this presiding officer. Since this is a virtual meeting occurring during COVID-19, public comment has been solicited through the Google form on the district website, dover-nj.org. Please understand that the public comment portion of our agenda are not structured as questions and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board may or may not respond to public comments. However, all comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when providing comments. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students or employees. Please be advised that you are commenting at your own risk. Any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject you to legal liability or defamation. As I mentioned in our first public section, let's remember that almost on a daily basis since March, our Dover community has had to make many sacrifices and decisions that impact our livelihood and lives. These decisions may have been difficult and traumatic. Let us all remember that we are one Dover that takes primarily into consideration the safety, well-being, and educational goals of all our school community. Mr. Minkowitz.
It looks like the first comment is from Darren Carney, Hillside Ave. What is the timeline for physical improvements to the schools and acquiring PPE in the plan that was submitted to county and state education officials for review? Is the district on schedule with these timelines in order to reopen for in-person learning for the second marking period? Is the board planning on having live questions at some point in the future so the public does not have to wait a month to ask a question based on the actions that occur at the meetings? For example, at the meeting on August 18th, it was announced there would be no sports or extracurricular activities. The public was shocked and angry and had no opportunity to voice their concerns. Practices were supposed to start yesterday, and we are just getting the opportunity today to make a comment. By the time this question is read aloud at the meeting tonight, decisions have already been announced, and we have to wait until October 20th to provide public comment and express our concerns. This lack of communication is frustrating when all the parents are trying to do is advocate for their children. The next comment is from Heather Carney, Hillside Ave. Good evening. I work in another school district in Morris County where the kids go to school every day. There are sports and extracurricular activities, even in the middle school, and there are no teacher or substitute shortages. I feel like I come back home and see that this district is living in an alternate reality. We know this virus is not going away for some time, maybe even years. My question tonight is how low do the numbers in town have to go in order for our kids to get any opportunities to go to school, enjoy senior year, socialize in clubs, sports, and other activities? This concern is not just for the high school kids, but the middle school and elementary kids as well. The most recent information from the town is 28 cases and dropping out of 18,000 people. This is less than 0.15% of the population, less than 0.25%. Other districts in the county have many more new cases per week and are still going back to school and sports. The number of cases a town has is not even a reason to close schools per the governor, so I cannot see how you can justify closing school any longer than the first marking period, given the technology issues the kids are having. I know this is supposed to be the superintendent's decision, but it is obvious that certain board members are involved in the decision-making process as well. I'm asking the full board tonight, are you making progress to reopen in-person learning in November? Our kids have been patient enough. The next comment is from Anthony Mayorga regarding full sports. I stand for athletics. We will do anything to get our season back. The town has already allowed their travel teams to participate this season. Please make the right decision for the student athletes of Dover. The next comment is Anthony Mireles from 2 Lincoln Ave. I just want to say that I know how it feels to miss your favorite season. My main sport is volleyball, and as we all know, the spring season was canceled. Finding that out tore my heart apart, and I would go home and cry almost every day because it is the sport I love, and I know this season would create a change and name for me so that I could have an opportunity to play college volleyball. I ask you to reconsider your decision so that my soccer teammates and I can have a soccer season as well as other fall sports. Thank you. The next comment is from Debbie Provost, 88 Lynn Drive. Having many family members who have grown up in Dover and participated in their sports programs, I cannot emphasize their importance to both physical and emotional well-being of our youth. These are uncertain and emotional times for many. Giving our students access to the normalcies of sports participation, if possible, is incredibly important and should not be taken lightly. I encourage you to vote in favor of allowing our students to play the sports they love. Dover football donor. The next comment is from Noreen Staples, P.O. Box 356, Brookside. Hello, I'm interested in specific examples as to how African American history is incorporated into the curriculum of your school district as required by the Amistad Act, which was put into law in 2002. I would also like to know what type of curriculum and activities this district has in store for this month, which is Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that it is important to teach students about Hispanic history. Thank you in advance for your response to my questions. The next comment is from Joanne Dunleavy, Grover Road. No one is ever 100% safe. Guilting others to enforce continued isolation from enjoying life is cruel. Taking precautions and outdoor activity is recommended. Yes, there are risks, but not playing also has risks. Sports and exercise are proven to be healthy and enjoyable for all school-age students. The next comment is from Felipe Davia, 309 Washington. How long in advance is the agenda made available to the public? Also, why was this meeting moved to 6:30? The next comment is from Cynthia Osorio, 12 Elena Place. Given that Tiger Wrap is no longer going to be accessible to the children at the Dover Public Schools, What steps are we taking as a school district to ensure that our children have a place to speak out about their emotions in a safe environment, or be able to provide them with services to ensure their mental well-being? The next comment is from Sebastian Polgren. Bring back fall sports. The next comment is from Susan Shower, 346 West Clinton. Please clarify for the public the process for comments moment submission. I understand that the first public portion was for agenda items only. Several comments were in regard to sports, which was not on the agenda. Why were they read? I support the athletics of our students, but the public is restricted by this, and all should be. The next comment. I don't see who the next comment is from. Kim Phillips, 19 Lutan. And it looks like it says there will be a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place winners awarded. All right, I'm getting it. It's very spread out. Dear Superintendent and BOE members, today starts Hispanic Heritage Month. The Hispanic Latino Network, Employee Resource Group, part of diversity and inclusion at Novartis Pharmaceuticals Corporation, is sponsoring their 13th annual art show contest. This time it will be held virtually. Due to COVID and health concerns, we will do this 100% virtual. Artwork will be submitted via email. You will receive these details in an email communication. The art show contest will be held on October 28th. The deadline for submission is October 21st. We will have judges pick winners before the event. The winners will be announced via live stream on October 28th at 6 to 7 p.m. Kids will work on this project during their personal time after school or weekends. You do not need to add this to the curriculum, but to share this opportunity. The topic for this art show is, what would your world look like without racism? To enter the contest, students will complete artwork along with a few paragraphs that tells a short story of their work. There are a bunch of program rules listed. There are a bunch of program rules listed. I don't know if you want me to read all the rules that are listed for the program.
Ms. Grisales, if I may, while Mr. Minkowitz gets his answer, one, if it's a public comment, it should be read in its entirety until the 3 minutes are up. But two, could we just repeat who that was from? I know that document is really hard, and
Kim Phillips.
No, that was Maria Chacon.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can tell by the content that the name and the statement didn't match.
Yes, and since we've interrupted the 3 minutes, right, and it's been hard to read, please read the
Okay, let me
summarize.
I have the program rules. To enter the contest, students will complete artwork along with a few paragraphs that tells a short story of their work. Program rules. Each student must email a clear image of their ongoing painting, the original painting, drawing, sculpture, or photograph that they feel identifies with this topic. All submissions must be an original creation and must not contain any artwork that has published or copyrighted or taken from the internet and modified. Along with each digital art submission, the student also needs to present a summary with their email detailing why their work relates to the topic. Grade groups for submissions. 5th grade to 8th grade, 1 to 2 short paragraphs. 9th grade to 12th grade, 2 to 3 short paragraphs. There will be a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place winners awarded in each group. Prizes will ship directly to the winning student's home. The prizes this year will consist of headsets, wireless keyboards, tablets, iPads, and wireless mice, which will help kids with their online learning. Our goal is to offer students the opportunity to participate in an art project that will address life skills development, fostering an increase in self-esteem, empathy, and community. Participants in our arts program will also develop a sense of self-empowerment and will be encouraged to find their personal voice and means of expression. We need your help to spread the word so parents can help their kids sign up to participate. Once you receive my email, please send this email to the parents, students post on your school page and any other school social media platform you might use. You will also.
What is the time?
This is the last sentence.
Perfect.
You also receive an MS Team invite at a later time with instructions to join to all interested in participating.
Thank you.
I paused it a few times.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
that was it.
I think I'm up to Gabriel Gomez, 1885 Brook Drive. I would like to thank the board and superintendent for allowing us student athletes to resume play. We greatly appreciate your consideration and your work with students. The next one is Martha Chacon, 82A East Blackwell.
I'm sorry, Mr. Minkowitz, I think you missed a couple. Item 14.
Item 14. Yes, I got confused because one item looked exactly like a previous item. Item 14, Maria Chacon, 82 East Blackwell. I would like to give a standing ovation to our principal at Academy Street School, Mr. Marion, for always being a great leader. I would also like to say that my kid had a good start of the school year with her awesome teacher, Mrs. Wellborn, who teaches 6th grade. She plays games with the kids. If they answer correctly, they get a prize. Sophia was happy to receive 2 Pez dispensers by mail. I would also like to thank Ms. Metzger, her 5th grade teacher, for being so kind, sweet, and energetic. The students who get her are very lucky. All of our teachers should continue to get encouragement from the administration. They took on a tremendous task teaching online through COVID. The next comment, Sebastian Holgren, bring back fall sports. I read the comment from Mr. Gomez, the comment from Maria Chacon, 82A East Blackwell is next. I would like to ask what the administration is doing about promoting the census. Would it be possible to promote it in Spanish and English in your social media platforms, or sending an email out to parents in both languages? We only have 2 weeks. We will not have another opportunity for another 10 years. The town of Dover has done outreaches through the food drives, signing them up directly or providing information, as well as promoting on their social media and their electronic town screen. Thank you. We all need to work together to get Dover counted. The next comment's from Kim Phillips, 19 Rutan Drive. I had to modify my comment based on the earlier discussion. The first part of my comment is not directed to the board or the superintendent. I just want to take this moment to publicly say how very proud I am of the students that came together to advocate for themselves and their fellow athletes. Over the past few weeks, I've watched these students be interviewed by Morris Sussex Sports, put together and promote a petition, meet with the superintendent, pull together an in-person stand-in support, etc. I've known some of these kids since they were in grade school, and I could not be more proud of how they represented Dover. I have also two additional questions unrelated to this topic. First, with respect to meal distribution, which now includes an evening meal, I'm wondering what accommodations are made, if any, for the students who have food allergies and may be unable to eat the food that is provided. While my daughter does not participate in the meal distribution, she does have a number of significant food allergies, which would prevent her from eating the majority of the food that is distributed. So my second question is, what is being done to make sure all students who would benefit from this initiative are able to do so? Second question, if time allows, with extracurricular activities being reinstated at the high school level, even on a limited basis, what, if anything, is being done to address extracurricular activities at the middle school or even elementary levels, even if such activities are done virtually? The next comment's from Gabriel Gomez, 85 Brook Drive. I would like to thank the board and the superintendent for allowing us student athletes to resume play. We greatly appreciate your consideration and your work with students. The next comment's from Sophia Chacon, 83A East Blackwell. Comment from an 11-year-old sixth grade student. Why don't they teach us anything that's going to be useful, like taxes and budgeting, finances and voting? The census instead of how long it takes to get to the sun and back. The next comment's from Lynn Laurie, 10 Hillside. Whether the superintendent receives merit pay or not is not the main issue. The main issue is whether the Dover Board of Education has created its own rubric to create a measurement as to whether the superintendent actually achieved the goals he set for himself. Students and teachers must complete certain predetermined measurements to prove achievement. The superintendent doesn't set his own goals and then do the measurement. That's the job of the Board of Education. The next comment's from Angelo Ramos, 326 Washington Ave. We, the parents, want the SROs in the schools. We really appreciate their work and empathy with our children, and we teach them to respect we teach them to respect them. We, the parents, ask you to please hire staff because they are high qualified and not because they are minority. How upsetting some students started the year with sub-teachers. Not because they aren't good, just because some students need structure and consistency in their education. We parents ask you, Board of Education of Dover, to be the role model for our students and do the best for their education, not for your personal agenda. Thank you. The next comment is Alfonso Torres, First Street. A lot has been discussed about the length of board meetings and how long they are. At some point during board member comments, the board president needs to step in and limit the comments of certain members of the board to a reasonable time frame. There are times when certain members of the board go way off topic, and I encourage the board president to keep the comments of the board members clear, concise, and on the topic that is being discussed, as a common courtesy to all of us that are watching. Thank you. The next comment is from Lynn Laurie, 10 Hillside. Please explain to the public why it is so hard to read public comments. My understanding is that improvements have been made to district technology. Please respect the public by fixing this problem. I think Google would be willing to help. That's the last comment.
Ms. Mr. Winkowitz, since you've been reading them, do you want to answer that last one? I won't put you on the spot. It is. It's the way, Google Forms puts it all together and, in these tabs, and it makes it hard to read across the page. So we have to consistently be scrolling to one side and coming back and scrolling to one side. So that's why it's one of the hardest, it's a hard way of reading the comments. So.
It is. I'm getting a little better at it. The one or two are very spread out, and it makes it challenging. But I'm trying the best I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Minkowitz. That's all we can ask. Trying the best. Before you were here with us, we were doing it too. So I totally understand how hard it is. Thank you for trying and reading them as fast as you can, so that everything is in within those 3 minutes. I don't know if any in the administration would like to answer any of the comments at this time.
Two items, I think. One that came up, maybe two, talked about school readiness, and we did talk a little bit about that in the meeting tonight. And PPE continues to come into the district. So that was part of the decision that delayed school was the availability of PPE. The other big piece of that is our HVAC, which we talked about, and that's being looked at on Monday. We have that set up, that visit, and hope to learn some good things. But we do, as mentioned before, we're not just looking at filters, we're also looking at the functioning of our HVAC very closely, because it is such a critical part of the school opening plan. And the other piece, which is very hard to remediate, is spacing at the high school. So, when you have students that change classes and you have movement in the hallway, maintaining spacing is difficult. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update in regard to those questions. And there was a question in regard to students with food allergies. So we'll put something, for public reading, but just publicly, I'd like to say right now that if a family has a specific food need, please get in touch with the building principal and let them know, and we'll make an accommodation to suit that.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. I think it's important that not only to talk about the reason for going virtual is not only about having low numbers and hopefully no deaths in our town for COVID, but it's really about the facilities that we have and the preparation for it, and the lack of resources that we had from the past in order to open, right, technology and all of that. So I'm glad that you touched upon the spacing. I really wanted to ask you about, I know that was one of the main reasons as well. And the air filtering system in our buildings. So thank you for clarifying that. Mr. Crude, I wanted to see if you can quickly let us know, one of the questions is in regards to stopping board members from speaking during discussions. I understand when things are not relevant, that's certainly part of my role and can certainly bring it back to the point at hand, but could you speak upon kind of Robert's Rules of Order? And again, I think we've discussed this, and when I, as a chair of this committee, can and cannot interrupt people.
I think that, as my recollection is that there is not a specific board bylaw on the length of time that individual board members can speak. There is a bylaw respect to public comment and how long public comment can be. But I don't believe that there's such a bylaw with respect to board member comments. My recollection of Robert's Rules of Order, without looking it up, is that the general rule in Robert's Rules of Order, if it's not stated somewhere more specifically in board member comments, is that comments should be limited to 10 minutes. But I believe that that's the general Robert's Rules of Order comment. I'd have to rule on typical length of a comment by somebody that's participating in the meeting.
Thank you for that clarification. I also wanted to comment on why we're moving the meeting to 6:30. We really wanted to allow more, we've had received comments in the past to please move it earlier. So people can join and after work or situations like that. It's been commented in the past, as well as allow us more time if we needed to go over. We were going into midnight as well, so we wanted to move it a little earlier. I wanted to ask, I think we recapped and touched upon Ms. Osorio's comment in regards to what is the school doing since we don't have Tiger Rep. I think it would be a repetitive, but I just wanted to highlight that I know that you mentioned Dr. McLaughlin in regards to our partnership with Rutgers. And is there anything else that I'm missing that we should point out?
No, except again, and it's not solid by any means, but hearing from both the senator and other legislators who are not our legislators, there seems to be an optimism that funding will be restored, which would be very welcome, obviously.
Is there any other board member, Dr. Sainer?
I just wanted to clarify, it is my understanding, and I just want to make sure that I'm right, that there was a comment about comments. It is my understanding that the public comment, the first public comments that are related to agenda items, that is cut off before the meeting, but the comments after the board meeting, the second set of public comments, are allowed to run through the entire meeting until we get to that point, at which point, that's a lot of points, are stopped. Is that
Actually
correct?
neither of them are cut off. Both go
Okay.
right up to the point of the meeting. So just like in a regular meeting, the public is given the opportunity to comment up to what they have, where we are in the meeting. And I do know, I know if it's related, that we did read some of the comments tonight that were not board agenda related, and we can probably police that a little bit better when we read them next time through.
Ms. Cristales, if I may?
Yes, Ms. Ruiz.
Yeah, just to that point, people that make comments know this, the public self-selects to put either their comment in related to the agenda or not. And for any of us that have used Google Forms, I've used it in other professional capacities, thank you. And it is very frustrating to try to read them back. So while you're trying to get the name to match the comment, to scroll back and forth, and to move a meeting along, it's difficult to also think, oh, this one is not on the agenda, especially when we have such hearty agendas. So I don't know what, if any, assistance Mr. Minkowitz has in organizing the comments before the meeting. And even if he did that, or if any one of us did that, because they are still running throughout the whole meeting, we are probably going to continue having at least some comments read in one section that should have been in the other. So yeah, this problem is ongoing in other spaces. It's not only Mr. Minkowitz and our board that's suffering through this part of the remote meeting process.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other further comments in response to Mr. Robles?
Just a general comment. I want to recognize and admire the efforts of the administration and the teachers specifically. This first couple of weeks of school have not been easy. And as a parent, I can testify that as much as I know about technology, I could have used a lot more help knowing a lot more. And I can't imagine how difficult of a challenge it must have been for the teachers, not only to get trained, but the anxiety that can come with just trying to feel ready for day one and trying to do the meet and greets with the students, trying to deal with the parents, with us parents, frustrated at times, and the students, I'm sure, were also frustrated at times. But I think overall, my experience as a parent was very pleased. I'm very pleased with the efforts that were put forth, and I want to recognize all the teachers, the efforts that they're putting forward to the students. Not enough can be said about that. And I want to also recognize the administration. I know it's a lot of challenges, and I'm not going to try to say that any one challenge is bigger than another, but I appreciate all the efforts that are being put forth. And I'm looking forward to, the next few weeks as we get through this difficult time. And I believe everybody's looking forward to getting back into the schools as much as I am as a parent and my child is as a student. But obviously, health and safety is of utmost concern. And I want to recognize that, as much as, and anybody who says otherwise, I think doesn't really know that teachers do want to be in the school. And that's what I've heard from teachers, from students that talk to the teachers, from teachers that I know personally. But I think we are making good decisions and making good progress in doing what we're doing. And so I'm really appreciative, and I want to publicly say that about the teachers and continue doing the great job that you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Robles, for that. Okay, if there are no further comments, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? I guess we're staying on.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Is there a second, Mr. Miller, second? We're adjourning at 10:19. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all and have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.